Welcome to the Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patrons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So, a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Jason Hornsby, Christoph Fournier, John Travolta, JMails24, Unamento, M Iron26, Endless, Goldie McKiernan, Retro Bill, More Books, Cannabear, Fibre Oats, Bogey, Michael Kahn, Rob H, John Kays, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Will Brax, Mel B Styles, Troy Shuker, Hairy Blade, Mobile Mac 777, Neo the One, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Maria Neelands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, The Real Gabster, Abraham Mohammed, Skeptic 936, Life is Short, Texas Mike, David Wayne Foster, and Dank. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I will hand over to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their conversation while I set up for today's live show.
Out of the way by the more dense things. So that's like more clear to me. And we avoid a lot of this confusion, it would seem. No?
But I think my question has more to do with sort of the setup of something that you're going to test, right? Or experiment with, or to do an experiment with. The setup is the getting the balls to the top of the tower in order to drop them to see to measure the speed or whether they drop at the same, and then from that make an observation. Why it became important to me again is because of the setup for the double slit experiment. It takes a setup to bring the light into a certain situation where it can be observed or tested, right?
Well, but that's because there was actually a phenomena to test.
Okay, in that, what is the phenomena observed?
Now, what are you talking about specifically? Because the double slit is not an experiment; it's just an observation.
Oh, maybe is that where I'm making my mistake?
Maybe.
So
Very confusing. It's something that it was nuanced to me as well. I just thought the double slit, all of it, quantum erasers, all the same stuff. It's not.
Oh, so those are they're not considered scientific experiments. That goes through the scientific method.
No, because diffraction is actually the phenomenon that they're studying. So when they do the experiment, the quantum eraser experiment, that's what they're studying. See, there's no phenomena in something dropping. Well, it's something is happening, but it's not the same as what's causing that. Because if you drop something, you're the cause. Now, here's how I try to get people to understand these kinds of questions. So usually it's offloaded with the story first. Gravity is why things do this, that, and the third. So what I'm going to do to test that is blah, blah, blah. What if I just told you I went to the top of a very, very, very high tower and I dropped something? I didn't tell you anything else. You're going to say, okay, so what? What does that conclude? And then I say, well, that proves gravity. And I go, what? So me dropping this ball and this other thing proves gravity. What does that mean? Well, it means that we're stuck on a ball rotating. It doesn't even connect at that point. That's how you know it's a logical fallacy. There's no connection to the phenomena that proves that the Earth is a sphere. So it's really just an affirming the consequent fallacy at the end of it or in the beginning of it. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I can insert any story before dropping the stuff at the top of the tower. Would you accept it? Like if I told the story and then dropped these two things, would you then say, well, okay, yeah, those things are dropping at a different rate, and you told me this story, so that's all it is. Think about
Oh,
it.
yeah, I am. I am thinking through it.
That's what you've got to do, humble. Like I say, everyone's the same. I'm trying to remember things what they say on the show, and learn things all the time. And sometimes I just don't get it, and it takes me ages to. That's sometimes when I write these little verses down myself. I think that's subconsciously I'm doing that for myself. I'm listening to the guys, I'm listening to the debate, and then I'm thinking I'm just going to write these down in a really simple way that I can read and put it across my way, which I can understand in a simplified way, because I have trouble sometimes remembering things and absorbing things the way some of the guys do on the panel. So yeah, we're all the same, really. We're all only human.
Okay, so if I were to list, okay, uh, okay, the quantum eraser and all these things around this quantum physics thing, those things are proven experimentally. They are scientifically verified. True or false?
Who are you asking?
Oh,
I can't
anyone.
question.
Yeah, when you see a photon hit the photoelectric plate, it's just an observation at that point. It's not an experiment. It's an axiom. It's just something that's happening that you're observing at that point.
At that point.
Yeah.
Okay. But at the conclusion, when everything is being done,
Mute Eli.
some conclusion is being reached.
Eli, thank you.
A conclusion is being reached about what happens to these photons. True?
Just light.
Well, not at the point that you observe. I'm sorry. Well, Nathan is here. You want to ask your question again? Because
I've been listening.
to
You've
give
been
you
doing
an
all right.
example.
You've been doing fine. You're answering him.
Okay.
Sorry, is it my turn? Yeah, because if I were, okay, I'm going to write down number one. Natural phenomenon observed.
Light diffraction.
Light diffraction. Okay. Diffraction. Okay. Number two. Sorry, I had Kiwi's page here that gave me the list. Okay. Hypothesis. Is that number two?
Oh, right. So are you trying to detail the independent and dependent variable in the double slit experiment? Is that what you're after?
Yes, whichever, to follow the scientific
Okay, well, it's more specific then. So
Method.
it's specifically, rather than diffraction, which is wave function. So I'm going to reterm it just because it's more accurate within the description of the experiment. So wave function collapse, that is to say, light diffraction collapsing into those two bars that you see.
Maybe there's a need to explain this as steps. This isn't one stage.
Yeah, I was gonna do that, but I want to see what his next question is because there might not be a need. Go ahead, Humble.
Okay, construct a hypothesis. Yeah, ask a question, do background, construct a hypothesis.
You missed that stage. That's what Adam was just about to drive at. You were right, Adam. You called it. Do background research. So what's already been studied in regards to the phenomena? So what's already been figured out with regards to light and its diffraction? That's what you've got to do. So you then go back and look, okay, well, what have they done up until now when they've been studying light? Yeah?
Oh, okay.
But we don't tend to detail that step because it isn't necessarily intrinsic to the method itself, but it kind of is. So we give an abridged, is that the right word, version, when we say there's only 3 steps: phenomena, hypothesis, experiment. Well, no, there's many more steps. They just get more nuanced and specific, like doing research first to find out what else has been already discovered, what's already been through the scientific method with regards to the phenomena that you're looking at. And in the case of light, and this is where Adam might want to take over because it was him that brought it up, it's not just a simple case of somebody saying, oh, we just stumbled on light diffraction. We were walking along and suddenly we saw a load of wavy lines, diffraction pattern collapsing into the 2 bars. That isn't something that somebody just stumbled on in nature. So you could argue, oh, right, well, this isn't a natural phenomena. Well, it is, because light diffraction, that interference, is aside from the norm. In other words, what we don't normally see light diffraction. We can see light diffraction in nature. Therefore, that's where your starting point is with your research, because the diffraction is out of the ordinary. What is described and seems complicated as wave function collapse actually isn't that complicated at all when you think about it. What you're describing in that regard is normality. You don't typically see an interference pattern. You just see light. In other words, everything you see is wave function collapse, because that's all you see. Unless you happen to walk under a tree, for example, and see a little slit between the leaves, letting a bit of light through, and then you happen to see a diffraction pattern. Because yes, diffraction, the thing they're actually studying, which is light, if you want to give it a more general term, is certainly, doing these things in nature. But why? That's the question that's then being asked. Why is it the case that we can see light diffraction in nature, but typically the norm is to see it actualized? So there you've got a phenomena. How do you get from this diffraction pattern to what we see in reality normally, i.e. not diffraction, not interference, just light? So there's a step in between that sort of is oversimplified when you stick it in the pink writing and go, well, what's your natural phenomena? Because in this case, if you write it down, it's wave function collapse. What's wave function collapse? Well, in the most literal terms, within the confines of the description of the experiment and what you'll actually see happen, you're just seeing light shine through a gap and hitting a photographic plate. Or to put it another way, bugger all is happening. That's exactly as you'd expect the behaviour to be. Shine a light through a gap, it goes through the gap and hits the other side. There it is, right? That's normal. What you don't expect to see is a probability distribution of where the light might be, because you've shined it through a gap with another gap next to it, and suddenly you've got this interference pattern. That's the starting point, if you like, for this experiment. Make sense? Probably not. Adam, did you want to add anything to that?
No, very little, really. It was just to nuance the point that you don't go from diffraction of light to, I'm getting feedback from Discord. You don't go from the spotting that phenomena and then suddenly at the double slit. Even when we're looking at the wave function collapse, I think you're looking at like 130 years of experiments with light, from the first double slit, noticing the interference, to the collapse. I think I'm not sure the dates. It's 100 odd years, isn't it, between the two? So this is a growth. The thing that validates it as natural science is that first phenomena that Nathan describes, that we have diffraction of light. We observe it in nature. So we can move forward from there. Maybe not in one linear motion, maybe over many years and many different experiments. But it's validated initially by the fact that it's observed in nature.
Yeah. I think my problem is maybe I'm jumping. I need to go back and fill in a few blanks along the way, because at the end of it, I'm asking myself, like, if with just take Newton, he saw these things fall, and he's thinking, why are they going down? But in this, at the, I'm wondering, what did these men, what they weren't trying to prove, what were they trying to look for?
They're trying to find the
at the end
cause of wave function collapse. If you want to tie down specifically what cause of what effect, the cause of the effect they're studying for and found was the cause of wave function collapse. So knowledge of which path, I'm getting there, it's complicated stuff. Knowledge of which path causes wave function collapse. So you have a cause and effect relationship. Now when it comes to things like Newton, they might bastardize it and turn it into weight and newtons. But when you actually look into the practical application for it beyond the quantification that you might be able to extract from Newton, there isn't anything in practical terms or technological terms that you can see as a byproduct. In other words, if you spend too long trying to focus on the experiment because you can't wrap your head around it, I'm not trying to demean you in that. It took me a long time to even come close to understanding this at about a 60-70% level. Anyway, the point is that what you have to look, if you're at that stage like you are, is go, of the two, which developed into something useful? Because the thing that is much more palatable is the technology in this instance that comes out of quantum mechanics, right? So the generation of computing that we have is directly born out of this experimentation. This science results in something that benefits society. So that is a good sort of benchmark to say, well, I don't know if this is valid or not. Well, did it yield anything useful? Because typically, and maybe someone will come up with an example of an experiment where it didn't develop into anything useful for society, but I haven't got any examples of that. Typically, the easiest examples would be medicine based. But you can just say, did it benefit humanity? And if you say, oh, right, all this technology came out of the back of that understanding, yeah? Well, you can go, okay, right, so I can appreciate that there's something that's actually come from it. Therefore, it has advanced our understanding.
I think I found the question, though, in what you were just saying. Did wave function collapse? Where did they you're saying that wave function collapse is what they were, like, they never saw that before the experiment. I thought this was something that happened in the experiment. So prior to that, this wasn't a thing, was it?
Not exactly. So it's kind of stumbled upon by accident. In other words, they're just studying light, and then they discover a behavior of light on that journey of discovery. Now, this is what I was trying to get to earlier when I'm saying it's not like you can just say, I go out and see wave function collapse. Because,
right.
So it's, I get your objection. I understand your objection, and I had the same exact objection when I first discovered this, because in a simplistic way, what we do to take apart nonsense science claims is get them down to their raw, independent and dependent variable. You're saying, well, is there a naturally occurring phenomena here? Yes, light does naturally diffract. Yes, light does actualize. That's the norm. And there is something, a process, that can cause that to happen. Now, I'll just let Alwyn in. Oh, we're about to start the live show. We'll probably get into this again in tomorrow's pre-show, I mean, no doubt. But hopefully that's been a little bit helpful.
Thank you.
No, hopefully it's been a little bit helpful.
Yes,
I'm not sure how much.
I made a step. I think I made a step today. Good.
Yes.
Nathan, I put up the quote in Master.
To point out. Go ahead. Sorry, Tim.
Yeah, I put up a quote in Master D that Anthony Riley gave us about Newton expressing what he felt that.
Try again.
Okay, I put up that quote in a slide in Master D that
Sleeping Warrior showed us, where Newton is saying what he doesn't want to ascribe to him about gravity. So that might help him if Righteous puts it in Discord for him.
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto, and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by Arwin, Brian's Logic, Adam, Neil, 10th Man Rising, Righteous Force, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Good morning.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Afternoon, everyone.
Good morning, enthusiastic lot. Have we got a suggestion for a video that we're going to be covering today? I quite like the... Oh, we've already got one. Is this it? Round
Yes,
Earth?
we have The Priest. Round Earth by Neil deGrasse Tyson himself, and the
I
surprise
can't
to
hear
follow.
you. Eli's decided he's going to be off mute while you're in the middle of a sentence, so we can just hear his background noise. Thank you, Eli. Do you want to try that again, 10th?
Yeah, Round Earth by Neil deGrasse Tyson himself, and a surprise to follow.
So tell me, Neil, is the Earth flat?
Yes, it is. Elevation angle measurements prove it. Your globe model came from a flat Earth projection of an angle-based celestial sphere model and a haversine formula application to get you to your globe model. So your globe is a flat Earth.
We have video from space of the rotating spherical Earth. The Earth is round.
Thank you for joining us on this episode.
Is Star Talk the guy that we did last time? Is it the same channel, or is Star Talk Neil deGrasse Tyson's channel where he's invited this comedian guy on? Do you know what I'm talking about? This video is the
They're
same good-looking brother from last time.
Yeah. No, this is his
That's not
YouTube
even
channel,
true.
and the guy's always there with him. Like
Hold on, Ted. Go ahead, Eli.
the guy's.
I was just saying that's not even true. That's one of the things flat earthers want, is to see the Earth turning from space. I know that space doesn't exist. I know all that, but we don't have any videos of the Earth turning.
We would be happy if we had Earth-based Coriolis, and we wouldn't even need to go to space. We don't even have Earth-based Coriolis, let alone the violation of natural law that someone's in space taking a picture of Earth turning, which is just CGI. So let's just show it happening here.
I like Professor Dave's admission of what QE was doing last night. He kind of ended on that point where Dave admitted that it's the celestial sphere that's rotating above us. Good to know he knows the truth.
What is there are people
Interesting.
who think Earth is flat,
Right.
but recognize that the moon is round. Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and the sun are all spheres.
He's got a straw man up, so he's got a flat Earth pancake with the moon above it in the solar system, basically. So it's just their heliocentric world with sun at the centre and then all the planets moving out. But instead of being a globe Earth, it's got a pancake Earth in the middle. It's like, so we acknowledge that we've got round lights in the sky. I don't acknowledge that we're a pizza pie sandwiched between other planets with the sun at the centre. None of us accept that. This is the basis of your heliocentric model. And number one, to get this alignment with sun at the centre, you've got to take an R-base value from a sphere Earth. And to get that R-base value, you need to measure a flat plane and apply a haversine formula to the celestial sphere model to develop your globe model, to then superimpose the R value from that globe model based on an angle measurement to Polaris onto Venus, so you can apply Kepler's third law of interplanetary motion and assume orbits. So this on screen now, is an angle-based measurement from a flat Earth transposed into a celestial sphere model, transposed onto a globe model to derive orbital mechanics from Kepler's third law, to then transpose it back onto a pizza pie model within that heliocentric sphere Earth world. So this is beyond ludicrous, and we have debunked all of the aspects around the strawman pizza pie flat plane with a sphere globe missing from a heliocentric model. We've debunked the model itself because the model's based on R. You haven't got an R-based measurement for a assumed to be sphere called Venus. You haven't got an R measurement for an assumed to be sphere-based Earth. And the one you did have before we debunked it with the Black Swan was taken from flat Earth elevation angle measurements. So the Earth is assuredly flat. And the only possibility mathematically to assert that it's a sphere takes measurements from a flat plane. Anybody got anything to add?
Yeah, I remember early on, back in the day, someone would say, if you're a pool table and you had a billiard balls on you, would you consider yourself as, like a ball? So just that whole idea of him showing those pictures and giving either discs or circles or globes out there in the sky, which he says they are, then we must be that.
Yeah, if you're strolling through the forest, their assertion is, you look up at the sky and you see a load of what they claim are spheres. Right, no, they're dots, they're lights in the sky. Nevertheless, through their tracking of them over a period of time, they can assert they're looking like they're moving around each other, therefore in orbit, therefore spheres, therefore everything above you is a sphere, therefore we're on a sphere. Okay, so you're walking through the forest, and you look around above you, and there's trees everywhere. Trees as far as the eye can see, up, across, every direction. Are you a tree?
No, it is comical because rather than just giving the proof that we're on the globe, he stays on the fringes of the way they talk to people who, oh, okay, these people know, rather than saying, where's the radius value? Where's angle measurements? You need a flat baseline. They just stay away from that. That's why I have a surprise at the end for you. Go on.
But Earth is flat. That's not, something doesn't square.
Something doesn't
there.
jive, right?
Okay. Plus, in my latest book,
Sorry, what doesn't jive? Something doesn't jive. What, the elevation angle measurements required to give you your sphere assertion? That's what doesn't jive with your globe. Because when you just say, well, it just doesn't jive flat, and you've started off in the edit by saying you've got pictures of Earth from space, total lie. You haven't got pictures of Earth from space because space is a second law of thermodynamics violation sky vacuum, where all of the gas we're breathing at pressure could escape into, and would, by way of natural law. That's what gas does. So there's definitely no pictures from an area where gas is not filling, but rockets have been to take pictures. It's all nonsense. He's going to assert Himawari, a complete nonsense CGI of an Earth claimed to be spinning from a sky vacuum that doesn't exist. I can debunk every aspect of every picture he ever claims to have come from space.
ooh, Did I just plug my
Wait,
book?
your latest book is called Astrophysics
It's a crap. That's really all this is about. Tyson raking in the dough.
for People in a Hurry. What? We just happen to have a copy right here.
Yeah, I'll learn about your religion that you didn't even know you were in Neil deGrasse Tyson's new book. You've been duped and you didn't even know it.
No, it just happens to me. I swear we didn't plant the book. How about him?
Yeah, you did. You got the book right there. You're there to rake in the money from your heliocentric lies that you've been trained to deceive people with. So, you know, you're going to get paid for deceiving people. You know, better than some preacher claiming to perform miracles on a stage in front of thousands of Christians. You're just a charlatan.
An entire chapter titled On Being Round.
We're not. On being round, do you mention the fact that elevation angle measurements to Polaris give you your equatorial plane that is then converted into the sphere? On being round. Do you include those elevation angle measurements in your book, Tyson? I bet you don't, because that would be a disclaimer that all of your globe claims required a flat Earth to make them.
Oh. And it's an exploration of how all the laws of physics and
Laws of physics, this should be good.
the accounting of energy as processes unfold in the universe, how that conspire to make things round.
So it favored.
No, it didn't. Entropy law wouldn't conspire to make things round. That's far from anything to do with gravitational accretion, which is what he's alluding to. On the contrary, natural law defies your assertions of gravitational accretion forming planets. Because if there was, we wouldn't have gas expanding in all directions. But of course, in their world, when you look into the sky and colour in the images from Hubble, you can say that the gases are collapsing in on each other with gravity and forming stars and planets, in total defiance of the second law of thermodynamics. Which law? Did he name a law? Will he move on to Newton? Probably.
Favors the sphere.
Favors a
Nathan?
sphere. Yeah.
Nathan,
Yes.
Nathan, he personified energy and said it conspired.
Reified. Yeah, his reification fallacy.
Yes.
Right.
And if something's not a sphere, it's a little bit flattened, you can ask what flattened it, and you find
Can you? What, like in the celestial sphere model? What flattened it? It had to be that way because you're taking elevation angle measurements from the baseline of the ground you're standing on. So that's how things are flat, if you really look at them. Obviously, that won't be in Neil deGrasse Tyson's book, and we'll get a limited audience because we're pointing it out.
out, oh, it's rotating real fast.
Right.
What's rotating? If we were, we'd have Coriolis drift, like balls drifting through goalposts, as you assert. But then the blimp film in the game would be drifting away at the rate that Earth's turning beneath it, shortening flight times when travelling west, Neil deGrasse Tyson. So no, definitely no spinning either.
So then it gets a little flattened because of that.
Right.
Why is this just a giant straw man about how you say Earth is flat, and then tell us how it isn't?
And so almost everything in the universe is either spheres or slight distortions of a sphere for some.
No, on the contrary. Your maps and models that are sphere-shaped have come from flat planes and elevation angles taken from them. So no, definitely not. Completely wrong.
Other thing that's happening to it. I mean, we can just see how the universe favors spheres.
So it's
Favours it? Well, why would you take measurements of angles from flat planes to develop the celestial sphere model and the equatorial plane you later claim to be the outside edge of a sphere at the quote-unquote equator? You know, it's favouring flat when you're measuring the thing that you say describes everything in the known universe when you base it on an R value for a sphere Earth that's been measured from a flat plane? No, definitely not, Tyson. We've just debunked everything you've just said in the last breath.
nature.
Right.
Basically,
Nature.
the universe.
Nature, what, like laws of nature? Like things expanding to fill volumes as opposed to coalescing with gravitational accretion to form planets? Nature would defy everything he's just said, mate. Laws of nature. Second law of thermodynamics specifically debunks everything he's just said.
In all fairness to the people who want a flat Earth.
Yes.
We don't want a flat Earth, we measure it, as do you, to get your globe. Haversine conversions from a celestial sphere. That's a flat plane to get angles to Polaris to develop the equatorial plane. And that is where your globe came from. So no.
Let's be fair to those people.
Be fair to us, telling you that you need a flat Earth to get your globe. And no, don't patronise me when we are pointing out to you that this laughing chuckle monkey next to you with his book that he's punting won't be telling you that the globe came from a flat plane. And that is factually where it came from. Elevation angle measurements to Polaris give you your equatorial plane. And that is where you develop the globe from. So it's not a want or a need, it's a fact of life. Earth is flat.
In Columbus's day, there was surely a flat Earth contingent.
contingent, he would be using elevation angle measurements to stars to navigate, though, wouldn't he?
Yes.
Columbus predates the era of experimental checking of any idea you might have.
Now, experimental checking of ideas is an oxymoron because you don't experimentally validate ideas. You experimentally validate causes of natural phenomena. So Neil deGrasse Tyson, the wizard's just lied to you about what science is. Of course he has. Because he's not a scientist, he's a charlatan. You like those guys pushing people over and telling them that they're healed? That's what he is. A charlatan. No, I'm afraid not, Neil.
He also insulted every person prior to Columbus there, saying that they never checked anything. Just to validate his point that Columbus was right and we're right, the way to do it is to make that very strange claim that in the past nobody checked anything.
Say it again. I want to know if Neil deGrasse Tyson has validated how he navigated. Did he use the stars by any chance? Let's have a look at his process for getting around. If he's discovered all of the sphericity of Earth, let's see how he navigated it. We'll want to know that, Tyson. Obviously, it's quite integral, given that you're describing him navigating.
Not a lot of peer-reviewed studies back in the day.
Peer-reviewed? Go ahead, whoever that was.
It's just me, Brian. Yeah, just a small point. The first ever globe is from the same exact year as Columbus supposedly discovered the Americas.
Hey, John.
Hey, what's going on?
You're checking out Tyson. This video, I should really actually said that. We're on a channel called Star Talk. Let's be reasonable. Even though he's a lot bigger than I am, I will still share his video. Did we establish who Star Talk is? Is it the comedian or is it Tyson?
It's Tyson. It's Tyson's YouTube channel.
Okay.
And he has the comedian there with him all the time.
What's the comedian's name? So we're not calling the comedian or the handsome brother, because we should really give him a name. What's his name?
I'd have to.
I don't know the guy's name. Isn't this terrible? I'm sorry, mate. Anyway, Neil deGrasse Tyson demonstrates absurdity of flat Earth. Good video.
No, he left off on peer review. So say something there.
Yes, so peer review. No. Experimental validity is what we'd be looking for if we're talking about the physical nature of reality, because that's what physics is. In this realm, we're dealing with natural science, assuredly under the umbrella of physics, like all science, because we're dealing with the physical and natural world. So for this, we want experimental data. We don't want peer review. What, men in coats telling each other that they're right, highlighting each other's work so it can be published? Who cares?
Back in the day.
Kind of just like.
Come again?
Just for your FYI, the other gentleman's name is Chuck Nice, the comedian.
Chuck Nice?
Yeah.
I like this guy. He's got a good name. Handsome fella. Shame he's talking to some wizard.
Just say whatever you felt.
Nice guy.
You know what? I believe that elephant poop will cure cancer.
There you
Why would you say that after I've just said I like you, you stupid idiot? Why? Why do you believe elephant poop cures cancer? I mean, if you think the cure of cancer is lack of elephant proof, you can put that through the method if you like.
Here you go.
That's right. Wrote a paper about it. Like to read it? Here it is. And
Yeah, that's what our point is, though. You guys just write papers about stuff in space being spherical, and then expect us to just swallow it because it's been through quote-unquote peer review. Now here, where we're suppressed in a tiny little pond with absolutely no help from YouTube whatsoever, we point out that experimental validity is offered after you put things through the scientific method. That's the method to offer you the empiricism, not the men talking and highlighting each other's work so it can be published. But you're going to talk about how, what, you can just make stuff up like cancer being cured by elephant poo, put it in a paper and publish it, and Bob's your uncle. Yeah, exactly our point. Yeah, that's what's going on with space, you stupid buffoon.
you're good, right?
Right. So it wasn't until Francis Bacon, Galileo, in the 1600s, where the idea that if you're going to say something and you think what you're saying is true.
No, it's irrelevant. This isn't science. It doesn't matter what men think in regards to their statements. Oh, I think this is true. Who cares? If you're going to offer any sort of empiricism, you need to be offering a scientific empiricism.
That's
Then
what I think.
no matter how
This is what I'm going to predict, but I think that's what he's about to kind of describe historically when he's mentioning Bacon. First of all, the Baconian method, which is the precursor of the philosophy for the scientific method. It's interesting. He's going to go through that history and then cite fields that he works in that don't use that methodology.
So you're just saying he's about to literally grease the skids with the men who developed the scientific method to then move on to, of course, punt some pseudoscience that hasn't used it.
That's what I got a sniff of.
Okay, we'll see.
how obvious you think it is that it's true, you should still test it.
Gotcha.
There could be some.
But test your ideas, because that's what you've prefaced this with, Tyson. Test your idea? No, your supposition of cause when studying natural phenomena, right? That's what you're actually going to be doing if you're following the method of science.
Something fooling you.
He also brought Galileo into it. Now, we all know what Galileo was famous for being an astronomer. So how could he test anything?
In one way or another. So if you want to say Earth is flat.
If you want to say it, no, we measure it that way. You've already mentioned somebody who's navigated the oceans. Now, they will have been using a sextant to do so.
Then, for example, lunar eclipses. What
about them? What about lunar eclipses? Are we going to now start begging the question of orbits? Because you've not moved on to the scientific method and how you're going to have some validity offered to things. If we're going to talk about this as a natural phenomenon, or we're going to put it through the methods that's been developed by the men you mentioned in passing to grease the skids of your pseudoscience, then we're going to be establishing the cause of the phenomena known as an eclipse. That's what we'll be doing. Dependent variable eclipse. Okay? That's what we'll be doing if Tyson now details the methodology of science. We'll see.
It's a lunar eclipse. If your face is the brilliant sun.
Thank you.
And this is Earth.
Why are we presupposing orbital motion before we've done anything? So, as I said on yesterday's show, every single claim to be proof of a sphere will start by your assuming the sphere Earth. So here we are with a sphere Earth with an R value in an orbital motion. It's begged the question of Earth falling around the sun and begged the question of Earth in its sphericity in the first place. So we're automatically assuming everything that he needs to prove and justify as his claim at the starting point. The textbook definition of a begging the question fallacy from Neil deGrasse Tyson. So this is logically fallacious. Immediately we can ignore everything that follows this.
Mm-hmm. And the moon is over here.
What, orbiting? Because I've just assumed it.
The sun is always casting Earth's shadow into space.
What, when you assume orbital motion and assume that what you're about to experience is a shadow? So an eclipse is now a shadow, says who? Why is it a shadow? How do you know that it behaves that way? When you assume that Earth's a sphere and when you assume it's in an orbital motion falling around the sun and you assume that the moon is in an orbital motion around the Earth and you assume that one blocks the other. One is occulting the other. No? How do I know it's a shadow? It turned red when I saw it. Definitely not a shadow, Tyson, by my own bloody eyes.
Space. It's always there no matter what.
Right.
Obviously. Okay?
Obviously, no, you've just begged the question. Stating obviously is your charlatan conman move of convincing the person you've just used fallacious logic that obviously my fallacious logic stands. No, you just begged the question of everything you need to validate. You need to validate Earth's a sphere, you need to Earth with a radius value for it to be a sphere, and you need the exact same radius value to assert all of the distances and sizes of said spheres that you've assumed the lights in the sky are, and you need to assume R for orbital motion. So every single aspect of this begging the question fallacy has been debunked here. Please share the show.
It's just a shadow.
It's a shadow.
It's a shadow. If I beg the question and tell you it's a shadow. No, it turned red. That's not how shadows behave, Dumbo. What kind of shadow have you seen that's turned red?
The moon
It's just a shadow
occasionally.
shining
Sorry? Oh, it's him.
on blackness.
Yeah, a shadow in darkness.
A shadow in
So
Just keep saying it. Just keep asserting the begging the question fallacy. The automatic assumption of your orbital motions causing shadows. Just keep saying it 3 or 4 times. So everyone's in no doubt that you're begging the question fallacy is correct.
So the moon occasionally passes through that shadow.
What, when you've assumed that it's in an orbital motion? It'll pass through because it's orbiting a sphere Earth with an orbital value assumed and an R value assumed and sphericity assumed? Definitely not.
And if you see the shape of...
Sorry, that's not what I saw when I saw an eclipse. That looks more like the phases of the moon. What I saw was it turn red.
Earth's shadow on the moon?
Why would we assume it's Earth's shadow? Go on.
There's no such thing. Sorry, there's no such thing as a lunar eclipse. Nothing gets eclipsed. There is no occultation. You can see all of the moon. As you said, it's just sometimes it's red. You know, there's no eclipse. Like you don't get to not see the moon. That happens to the sun.
If I was to assume that it was a shadow, as he's indicating by saying it 4 or 5 times to his co-host, then presumably it would move in the direction of the orbital motion. It didn't. It went completely the opposite direction. The line that traversed whatever the moon is didn't move in a way that occultation was occurring, because that would mean the moon would have a line moving up it, and it didn't. It had a line moving down it. So utter bollocks. Even if I assumed it's a shadow, it didn't behave that way.
That's right. It went from the top right-hand corner to the bottom left-hand corner.
That's what I saw.
And then from the bottom left-hand corner back out the top right-hand corner.
Hey, I got a shout out from Ben. Oh, I feel really flattered. Thank you, Ben. He sent me money as well. I really appreciate it. Go and subscribe today to Taboo Conspiracy Channel. He's awesome. He says, thank you. It says, wonderful show. Thank you for everything you do. Oh, you're a massive inspiration to us all, Ben. Hopefully you'll get lots of subscribers from the meager audience that YouTube allows me to have here. 87 people watching. Please share the show. Oh, also, shout out to Godzilla. Good timing. I was just about to turn off the chat. Neil deGrasse Tyson is so high. How high is he? One word, space. Thank you very much, both of you, for your super chats. Really do appreciate the support.
It is always round. Always round. If Earth were flat, sometimes you...
Here we go. Now we take the begging the question assumption of orbital motions, begging the question assumption of R values, begging the question of orbital motion imposed with an R value on Venus, assumed to be the same R value as Earth, and Kepler's third law of interplanetary motion, all assumed by Tyson with this mere diagram, has now got a penny on its side as a flat Earth. What? When I say it's a flat disk? To make this assertion, to substitute in the globe Earth, you need to measure elevation angle measurements off a flat Earth to develop this model. So what, taking it back to the plane that you bastardized into a sphere and saying, if I put a flat Earth in this nonsensical orbital model, it doesn't work? Why would we assume it's a shadow? Why would we assume we've got a penny in orbital motion? Why would you insert the prerequisite requirement for a flat plane to measure, not a disk in space, back into your stupid sphere model after you measured a flat plane? Why would you do any of this? This is utter strawman nonsense.
You get like a flat shadow.
Right.
Oh, would you? Why is it a shadow again? It went red. Did this line go red?
We've never seen a flat shadow.
Right.
No. Nobody's ever seen a flat shadow. What? I've seen plenty of flat shadows. They very rarely have 3-dimensionality to them, actually.
Well, usually shadows are flat because it's a shadow on a flat surface.
Right,
That's
he's saying
usually how
to
you
be
see
fair.
shadows.
Let's not be mean to him.
In fact, it is a segment of a arc of a circle, no matter the orientation of the moon and the sun.
Orientation in your presupposed falling around a sphere Earth, heliocentric. That isn't what the case is, though. You've just begged the question of all of that. You've not validated any of it, and the assumptions required have all been debunked by us. Again, please share the show.
And the only thing that makes a perfectly circular shadow
would
what, a circle?
Be something that's perfectly circular.
Perfectly spherical.
Spherical.
Yes.
What about going red? What does that? Is that a shadow when it goes red? You haven't explained what I observed. I mean, I'm just a mere man looking at a moon turning red and going, what the hell is that? Meaning everything about it. What is the moon? What's it doing? Why is it in the sky? Why is it turning red? Why did it go extremely cold when it turned red? None of those things describe shadows to me. Like, none of them.
So the only thing that makes a perfect circle shadow every single time
Not a shadow. You've assumed it's a shadow.
is a perfect sphere.
Right.
Okay? No
What, if it's occulting it? The light from the sun, that is. So if we're a sphere and we're between the moon and the sun, definitely not. The Seleninian eclipse would demonstrate that there's nothing that could be described as Earth as a sphere between those two celestial items. You can't describe them that way when they're both above the horizon. What's occulting what? Nothing, basically. So what do you guys call that? The impossible eclipse? No, very much a possibility when we're watching it happen. It's just impossible in your stupid model. Because you've got it occulting and causing shadows. Whereas when it starts turning red and the sun's still there, obviously it's not an occultation that's causing it to turn red. I mean, cause a shadow as you assume it. None of that's true. None of it represents anything that I've observed in this regard.
No matter what angle you shine,
Oh, it's him interrupting Neil again.
as a disk, it would only make a perfect circle if you lined it that way.
Right.
In a straw man heliocentric orbital motion that needed a flat Earth elevation angle measurement to derive in the first instance, and then reinserted into that heliocentric model after measuring the flat Earth elevation angle measurements from a flat plane and converting it from the celestial sphere model with its equatorial flat plane by way of haversine into your globe to further advance your R value into a Venus with an R value that's assumed, and then Kepler's third law of interplanetary motion with a flat disk inserted thereafter. Utter horseshit. Yeah, notice how easy and succinct it was for me to pull apart that straw man in its entirety, as well as debunking every aspect of heliocentrism and proving a flat Earth. I didn't even need to take breath.
And then
You have to look at the face of the disc in order to get the circle.
The circle. If any
you-
other angle, you get other shapes.
something of another
The
shape.
Greeks knew this.
What's he talking about? Face of the disk. Is the moon now a disk for you? I mean, we don't see more than one side of it according to its disk assumption.
Right.
All the lunar eclipses they said, oh my gosh, we must be in a round Earth. This is
No, definitely not. What about when there's a Seleninian eclipse? Did anybody assume that there was a occultation occurring then? I mean, obviously you've got your excuses lined up. You just call it impossible. Definitely not affirming a heliocentric model or making me think that I've got a sphere Earth in between the moon and the sun when that happens. Because it isn't and couldn't possibly be.
thousands of years.
Before
2,000 years
Columbus.
before Columbus. Exactly. So now if the Earth is round, how big is Earth?
Why would we assume that Earth is round to then ask how big it is? Are you getting to your begging the question of an R value that we've already covered multiple times before you've even got here? I suspect so.
You might want to check for that. There was a famous
You might want to measure the R value. Yeah, definitely. This should be interesting. Looked like there was a little cut there.
experiment conducted by Eratosthenes.
You think Eratosthenes performed an experiment, observed natural phenomena and assumed a cause of the effect to vary it and see if it caused it? Definitely not. Again, the wizard Tyson hijacking the terms of empirical science to grease the skids of his heliocentric bullshit.
Eratosthenes. And the two cities in the old world, and
he's about to prove a flat Earth, ladies and gentlemen. Roll your sleeves up. Tyson's about to prove Earth is flat.
One of them, they knew that at 12 noon on a particular day of the year, that the sun was directly overhead and you could see the bottom of a well.
Oh.
Okay, so with you so far, sun's above a well, pointing directly down it. Sounds good, I'm intrigued.
Okay.
You don't run around looking at the bottoms of wells.
No.
Do you not? Well, why have you just described doing exactly that?
Because the light doesn't
Nathan.
take...
Yes.
Yeah, that would be the geographical position, the GP of the sun at that moment, that second, when that happens.
Yes, that's right.
Zenith
That's the
position, 90 degrees.
Correct. 90 degrees. He hasn't mentioned any angles yet. So 90 degrees to the sun, directly above us, at our zenith. The GP of the sun is above the well. It's got a term, Tyson. Strange you wouldn't use it.
It's just... No.
Doesn't get down there.
Doesn't get down there.
Down there like a swooping motion forming an angle. Interesting.
How can we use this observation to see if Earth's surface is curved?
Got a flat surface so far. This is a flat surface.
We needed another well. Turns out we can't see.
Notice how both of these wells are on a flat plane.
See the bottom of both wells at the same time. What might explain this? Well, there are two possible explanations. First, we could have a flat Earth with the sun that's small and close by, so that...
Okay. So that would generate the exact same effect.
The light hits the second well at an angle.
An angle? Anybody hear him say that word? Angle?
Yeah.
So we're measuring angles then.
He's done.
Say again,
Sounds
John.
like Aristotle's method.
John was first.
Yeah, he's done at the moment he mentioned angle. He just pulled the ripcord on heliocentrism. I don't think he knows that.
He's about to prove a flat Earth.
He did know
For a
that
second.
because when he set his diagram up, he didn't draw a curved baseline because he wanted to get angles. Look.
Starting point
knows.
for this assertion. Measuring angles. So what do we need for an angle? Well, we're going to need a baseline. It's part of the angle. So will that work on a curve? Nope.
Absolutely not.
So we need a flat Earth. So to do this, we need a flat Earth. Facts, ladies and gentlemen. Earth is flat. This Eratosthenes claimed to be proof of a sphere Earth that will assume the ground you've measured an angle from flat, actually bent, will prove a flat Earth.
Can I just point out something here, like a perfect equivalence? When the topic is gravity, right? They'll talk about how Einstein's theory of general relativity and how the Eddington observation proved that space-time curves. And then what they'll do is they'll jump from that to Earth, and they'll start talking about basically gravitational fields, and they'll conflate gravitational fields as though they are one and the same thing. And it causes confusion, and it's intentional obfuscation, in my view. This topic is identical to that. It's got the same tactic, because on the one hand, he's talking about wells and cyan and the sun being at zenith and lighting up the bottom of the well. But you can all check this yourself, and this is a genuine question, but isn't it sticks and shadows on the ground?
It doesn't matter. The principle's the same.
Like,
yes, depending on the source, you can get it as sticks and shadows, or you can get it as wells. It doesn't matter. The principle is angles. It doesn't matter which.
So is it their position that both were done, or is it their position that the shadow over the well?
Both. Depends on the source. Doesn't matter either way. But yes, you're right. There is an inconsistency that you can easily find where sometimes it's described with wells, sometimes it's described with sticks and shadows.
I just didn't realize that they did both. I thought there was an intentional obfuscation point so that they can cloud it and confuse the hell out of everyone.
I don't think they did either.
Pardon?
Historically, I don't think this happened, ever. I don't think this has been done. It might have been replicated, but do you think this actually happened? I don't.
No, and if there was a bloke that paced out the distance to the other town in Stade, and then they argue over what that distance was or whatever, depending on whether he's walking over a flat terrain or a curved terrain, he's going to get two different values, isn't he? Which is going to fundamentally change the maths. And that's another thing that they never talk about.
No. What's he going to walk for? To tell him what angle he got off a flat plane?
No, to get the distance for the between the two cities, innit?
Did they have mobile phones back then?
No, I think they did smoke signals or homing pigeons.
So at 500 miles, how the hell, like, even if you give them measuring the distance, do you know when you're in town A, how do you know it's 12 o'clock in town B to measure the angle off a flat plane?
They were quite wealthy. They might have had a Rolex.
I reckon they had a sundial.
A Rolex.
What it was, they did it a year apart.
Oh, that sounds like a...
That's right.
No, go on then. No, go on, explain that then. Explain that. So a year later, how do they know what time it is in Alexandria?
Well, they knew time from the sun, did they not?
No. How do they know? It's translation. It's translation of local time. So whether it's the same year or a year later, how do they know the time in Cyan when it is 12 o'clock in Alexandria?
Because they'll both have a solar noon.
Yeah, but how do you know the difference between those solar noons?
Okay, we could focus on these 2015 to 2017 arguments, given that we've got an elevation angle measurement argument that proves Earth's flat and debunks their claim of a sphere they're about to assume when they bend the line they've just taken an angle from. We could focus on the smoke signals that are required to determine if they're doing it at the same time or whether or not they can establish that they're exactly 12 months ahead with the same exact timings at the time locally. But elevation angle measurements that they're actually using, the angles that they're taking are requiring a flat baseline. That's why we're starting out with this diagram on screen and I've left it here. It's a flat Earth that's being depicted. How are you going to get angles from a curved surface? You can't.
No, you can't. But just to fill in the point, I mean, it's a north to south situation. So, like when the sun is at solar noon in Cyan, then in Alexandria, it will also be solar noon, but it just won't be directly overhead. So all you have to do was find a place that was directly.
How do you know that? How do you confirm that?
Because it's on along the shoe lines are based on the position.
No. You're missing the point. What he's saying, if you're one guy in one place and one guy in the other, and this is however long ago, how do you establish that it is at the GP position above the well in Cyan? How do you establish that if you're not in Cyan, be it a year later or on the same day?
The way I read it is they know that one day a year, it always did that at the equinox. So they decided to go to Alexandria, wait on that same day when it was solar noon in Alexandria, it would have to be solar noon in Cyan. And that's how they say in the writing they did it.
Okay, glad we figured that out.
Yeah. And what it was,
how, you can't do that unless you know that they've got the same time already, that they're virtually on the same thing, right? And you've got the presuppositions of a ball and a map that place it on there to make that statement. And this is why it's a made-up story, because it requires additional information that wasn't available at the time.
But I don't believe it was a made-up story.
Coupled with the fact that the guy never really exists in the way it's described, the only real description of him is just a name link with a non-similar title. One's a librarian and one's this. But there's very little there. The only thing is the kind of validation story. That's the only thing that's really out there, and one mention of it. It's just pushed from that. That's where it's grown from. I don't think that the guy has any merit in history.
I don't either.
I saw it as.
Okay. We can debate this later. It's not pertinent. Just a quick shout out to Sensual Goat. He says, I indeed share the show, although it unfortunately appears that many run away and hide when they hear the content disseminated on this show, as it destroys the straw man they have mentally developed. Thank you very much indeed for the sentiment and for the super chat, Sensual Goat. I really appreciate the support. On the subject of sharing the show, I tried this earlier and it didn't work, with exactly 100 people watching right now. Please share the show. If we do get to 120 people watching this show live today, I'll extend the show and we'll cover the majority of the video live. If we get to our mark and we're still hovering around 100, 110, then we won't. So please share the show now. Plenty of time to do so.
And we could have a curved Earth with a sun that's big and far away, so that all the light comes in parallel, but only one well at a time.
How are you going to get the angle? Notice he didn't mention the angle. All the light comes in parallel. Okay. How'd you get the angle?
Just hang on one sec. Eratosthenes definitely did exist, because didn't Eratosthenes come down Mount Sinai with the 10 Commandments and tell the world how to behave? I'm sure that was Eratosthenes, and if he didn't exist, we wouldn't have the 10 Commandments.
No, that's Al-Biruni.
Oh, sorry, Al-Biruni. My apologies, got that one mixed up.
Time is lit all the way to the bottom. Turns out with just 2 wells, there's enough wiggle room for both explanations to fit our observations.
Wrong. The one on the left can't acquire angles from. So what are you talking about? No, you can only do it with the flat Earth. You can only take the angles from a flat surface. This doesn't work on a sphere.
Eratosthenes only had 2 wells. But what if he had added a third?
Notice we're not showing how the angles are going to be taken. We detailed the angles when only a flat Earth was being shown. Now we seem to have veered away from those angles. Why would that be? Now we're adding a third well.
With a third well, it doesn't matter where the sun is. No flat Earth model can explain the angles of all 3 shadows.
Whoa, there he goes. No flat Earth model can explain the angles. It would be a prerequisite to measure them. What are you talking about? That makes no sense. No flat Earth, that's the baseline being flat and the angle up to the item in the sky. You wouldn't be able to acquire that from the curved surface in any of these events. Why have you got ticks next to all of these when you've just mentioned the angles? None of these give you angles. That's why you showed the angles on this diagram. Because it doesn't work on this one. So he explained the angles, showed the angles, but only on this diagram. Why would that be? It's because Earth must be flat to get the angles. Neil deGrasse Tyson just proved Earth's flat by demonstrating how the angles would be acquired from a flat plane and failing to show how the exact example would work on this curved surface that he put ticks on.
Shadows. But the spherical model explains it all 3 angles with ease.
Oh, here we go. All 3 angles? I'm afraid not. Go on, Brian.
Yeah, just something Dave Murphy pointed out a couple of years ago is that in his diagram, he places, not that it really matters, but he places the third well that's on his globe at a point that doesn't meet in the center. So he cheated. To put in a third well, which is, I don't even think is even the proper Eratosthenes, to put in the third well demonstration, to put in the third well when on his model, his globe model, he had to, it's actually a chord through the globe. It's not reaching the center. Dave Murphy pointed that out.
This is why he's using wells. So he is asserting that he can acquire an angle because he's taken a vertical well and then taken the angle off the vertical line going to the center of the Earth and then the angle off that. I don't know if you can see on the live stream what I'm talking about. Science versus
He's using it to
pseudoscience.
generate zenith angles because if he was to take an elevation angle, the or the curvy nature of his diagram there would be accentuated in the angle and show its impossibility. That's why he's using wells, not sticks, and so he can use a zenith off the side of the well.
Right, but how does he establish vertical for each of the wells?
That's it, isn't it?
And isn't that well got diverging zeniths on one side and the other?
Nathan, everyone in the morning sees the sun rising, so to speak, and there's a shadow that's cast by it, say using a tree. Then when the sun is directly over the tree, it's at its zenith over the tree, and there's hardly a shadow because it's directly over. Then when the sun is setting or going or fading away, the shadow is on the opposite side of the tree. This is normal, and that could only work on a flat plane. What is this 3 well stuff? When he's got the sun in the center of the middle well, the shadows are going to be cast appropriately, just like the tree example.
But see, how he got the zeniths, if you want to know how he got the zeniths, it's very simple. He pre-assumed that all sun rays were parallel. He pre-assumed the sun was really, really big and all sun rays were parallel. And that's how we got the zeniths. He's taking the zenith. So every angle is an angle to a zenith. So he's, if you understand what I mean. Yeah, so if he's pre-assuming that, then you can pre-assume the angles on a globe.
Gotcha.
Explains it all 3 angles with ease.
And to do this experiment, you got to measure the angles.
Not an experiment. There's no naturally occurring phenomena that's been observed, and there's no presupposed explanation for that phenomena being tested.
Greeks had the angles.
Yeah.
Okay, in fact, geometry translates to Earth measurement. So
yeah, Earth measurement and elevation angle measurements require a flat baseline. So Earth measurement is flat Earth measurement.
This thing, which should be obvious,
okay,
if you pay attention and think about it. If you send a ship straight to the horizon...
what, are we going to assume that the horizon's now blocking this sun? So within one diagram, like last time when he's got to condense a load of begging the question assumptions, he shoves a diagram up. So now we're assuming that the horizon's a physical limitation to our view, a geometric sphere edge, like Earth measurement. When was this measured as a sphere edge? He's just said geometry, Earth measurement, and then put a boat on the horizon. So the horizon's assumed to be Earth curve in this example. When was that measured? And when you tell us, bear in mind that the black swan shows that Earth cannot have a sphere edge for a horizon. We've debunked that.
Right. Eventually, it begins to disappear until it's no longer visible beyond your horizon.
Beyond what Earth curve as a geometric limitation blocking the bottom first? Oh, absolutely not. Because if that was the case, then you couldn't have a limitation beyond 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, as your geometry claims. And we've got evidence that shows it's considerably beyond those geometric limitations, therefore definitely not an Earth curve horizon. We've debunked that. So no,
I think he
definitely
did
not.
well to. I think he did well to not say behind the horizon, though. I thought that was clever to use the word beyond.
Right. And you should ask yourself, what kind of surface would produce that result?
The ocean,
if it's
the ocean has a ramp.
What kind of surface would produce that result? We can show it doesn't produce that result. So you asking about this, alluding to it being science, and then not presuming a cause of the effect to vary and manipulate it to see if it caused it, and just deciding that a surface shape is going to cause it? Oh no, definitely not, because when you make that assumption, you ignore the fact that in your diagram, the boat got smaller. That's not in your maths. So in Neil deGrasse Tyson, in his boat example, this boat
beyond your horizon
got smaller. No, definitely not. That doesn't happen in your maths. The boat remains the same exact size at all distances. It'll be measured in feet and inches, or meters and centimeters. And it'll be asserted in terms of how much is blocked at the bottom in feet or centimeters. Because that assertion does not change the size, as you've represented it in this diagram, with an angular representation, i.e. getting smaller by your perception. So the fact that it gets smaller into the distance would need to be factored in, and it isn't in Earth curve maths. The Earth curve maths with a horizon that we've debunked as being Earth curve, that Earth curve maths, the one that doesn't include perspective, the begging the question because it assumes R and assumes sphericity, proof of nothing because boats don't have this effect in the Black Swan, perspective hijacking because everything remains the exact same feet and inches size regardless of distance, Earth curve calculator. Yeah, we debunked this. Every single aspect of it.
Right. And you should ask yourself.
His question, Nathan. Sorry, 1 second. His question is completely a fraudulent question, because what we see, as far as what the horizon is and what we see, has nothing to do with the surface. It's all optical. So the surface has nothing to do with it. If you know what I mean. The surface having a shape or not having a shape. What we see is an optical effect, not an effect of the surface.
Yes and no. In terms of just a mere description of the horizon, singular, then yeah. What is the horizon? Well, it's an optical phenomena. Can we describe it? Yeah. Do we need to make a claim? No. But we could. And we could definitely include, and would, because we'd have to, the effects of perspective. When we described it, something that's excluded from the begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator. Because they've called perspective Earth curve. So they don't have it in there. Now, while we could do that, we don't need to. We've debunked the R value, we've debunked Earth as having a horizon that's physical. So therefore, what's the point?
Kind of surface would produce that result?
The ocean,
if it's
the ocean has a ramp. It's like a parking lot. The ocean has a ramp.
And it's an elevator.
Yeah, it's an elevator. Then you get to a certain point, and they just like going down.
No, but you will be measuring it as a flat surface if you're navigating it. You talked about Columbus earlier. Again, he didn't mention any of his measurements in terms of his navigation ability, or how he did it on maps that were flat, or how the sphere Earth that you're asserting he travelled around was developed from the flat maps based on an equatorial plane. What you simultaneously describe as your outside edge of a sphere when you apply the haversine formula to that equatorial plane in the celestial sphere model that's also a flat Earth. So no, we're not going to be assessing the ground when we already know we've measured it flat to develop all the maps and models. It's been measured flat and will be utilised flat. It has to be to get angles from it.
Seafarers knew this.
Right.
And so however flat they would have imagined the Earth to be.
They didn't. They measured it that way. They'd be measuring it that way when they're pointing their sextants at stars.
They couldn't have accepted it to be completely flat.
Well, they did, because they navigated huge swathes of it flat and mapped it as territory that was flat, drew circles on it that was flat, and found their positions with it being flat.
Otherwise, you would never not see the ship.
What? Never not see the ship? What, like we never not saw the oil rigs being blocked by a physical geometric sphere edge horizon that should have been in the way at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet if it was a physical Earth curve edge? No, it was way beyond them. It wasn't blocked by them at all. because it isn't a blockage. It's not a physical hill getting in the way. We've debunked it.
Okay. Also, if I just
110 people watching, might be an extended live show, guys. See if we can get a few more people to smash that share button.
tell you, Chuck, walk due east. Okay?
Right.
And don't ever stop.
Right.
I just turn around my chair and face this way, and eventually you're going to come back.
Right. And you'll probably be about 150 years old.
Who cares? You do that on any circular map. If you've got
do it north though, right? Well, if you turn south and wait, will that person arrive?
Exactly.
Where's the evidence that proves that it does?
You can show how this works on a flat map, and that is how it works on a flat map. And if you're navigating, the map will be flat. But what if you say we take this back to the globe projection that the map came from? It's actually a sphere that you're going around. Okay, navigate it north to south as Anthony's described. When's that ever happened? It'd be happening all the time if Earth was a sphere. It isn't. Otherwise, that would be commonplace. You navigate it spherically in all directions, all the time. You don't have to set out these road maps in such a rigid way. But what, if you travel east like you could on a flat map, and it makes it a globe? Definitely not.
I've got an interesting tangent to segue for a minute. Just bear with me, 60 seconds. My uncle is over from Tasmania. Tasmania is south of the southeast corner of Australia. It's pretty much Antarctica as far as the map's concerned. You couldn't really get any further away from England. He's over from Tasmania, and I asked him, like, how was your flight? And he flew on the new Boeing plane that is the competitor for the A380. I can't remember what it's called. And he was telling me how plush it was and all that. And I said, did you fly non-stop or did you do a transfer? He said, we stopped in Kuwait. I said, Kuwait? I said, you normally stop in Singapore, don't you? He said, yeah, we stopped in Kuwait for some reason this time, and I don't know why. He said, but that's the way that they've run in this route. And I was like, oh, I'm going to have a look into that. Anyway, I had a look into it, right? And Tasmania to London or to England, it's pretty much antipodal, right? You can go any direction from Tasmania and you can get to England in all directions because it's almost antipodal. So when you look at the route, they should be able to travel in any direction because of antipodality. But they don't. They're going through Kuwait. And it's like, I wonder why that is. Okay, it's more populated and there's commercial reasons for it. But it's also extremely convenient that they don't go any other way that's that way, right? They could do it one stop, one flight. And it's just interesting that they don't. Anyway, carry on.
I did come away. I thought you'd have more to add.
Oh, no. Because I am no Forrest Gump. That is how long it would take me to run the Earth.
For me, the fact that there's a rise of flat earthers.
Right. So based on QE's show yesterday, he's just used a stereotyping fallacy. So this will be followed by either a baseless assertion or what was the other one? I don't know, you were watching yesterday.
Straw man.
Or a straw man. So next, we're going to have a baseless assertion or a straw man. Let's see which one it is.
There's evidence of two things.
Okay.
One, we live in a country that protects free speech.
That's
non sequitur. You were wrong, QE. It was followed by a non sequitur.
Actually kind of awesome.
And two, we live in a country with a failed educational system.
Ooh.
Oh, there's a what would you call that?
A secondary ad-hom. He's not finished.
Poisoning the well. Sorry.
And a straw man. I mean, yeah, the education system is not exactly superb, but that has nothing to do with flat earthers.
No, but he's going to say that's why there are flat earthers, because the American education system has let them down. That's why we believe it's flat.
Sorry, Adam, I didn't mean to step on it at the end. No, he's actually telling the truth again. He tends to do that. There is a failed education system. Teaching everyone the world is a globe. That's a failure.
It's not just school, though. I mean, everything is trying to teach you it's a globe. Like all the mainstream media is, right?
It's insulting apologetics, yeah? It's not our fault as flat earthers we're that retarded. Yeah, the education system has let us down. We obviously don't grasp. We didn't learn the programming well enough.
I thought I took it in pretty damn well.
Yeah, me too. I think I know it pretty damn well. That's why I've become a
but now-
flat earther.
Yeah, but not from this viewpoint. That's what I'm saying. From this viewpoint, you did so well. John was doing better than most from this viewpoint until suddenly reality dawned. He even fought for it for a bit, you know? He was trained that well.
115 people watching at what would be technically the end of the scheduled live show.
Ah, almost there.
I think that's 5 more than yesterday.
You know what? I reckon tomorrow we will have an extended live show. But with that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980, oh, my camera's got skewed to the right slightly. Let's just sort that out. This is very professional. With that, I'll say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's live show possible. If you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. I've been Nathan Oakley and I'll see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!
Because most of the best conversations happen in the after show, don't they?
Ooh, that one hurt.
Unless it's a full moon and everybody goes ballistic.
Our system needs to
But
train
that's
you not
over.
only what to know, but how to think about information and knowledge. And
You need really to be thoroughly indoctrinated to the point where we have trained you how to think. Not just to think, how to think.
and evidence. If we don't have that kind of training,
Evidence, well, like proof, like what the scientific method could offer you.
you'd run around believe anything.
Anything.
Yeah, unless you had empiricism attached to the things that you stated, and then we wouldn't need to believe it. It would just be empirical to begin with. You know, like things that have been empirically validated through the scientific method. No belief required whatsoever.
Anything.
No, he just told the truth again, Nathan. 1 second. Sorry. He just told the truth again. He referred to the education system and said, if there was no evidence or proof, you just run around believing anything. Yeah, the globe. That is what people run around believing without evidence.
Oh, it's an embedded confession then.
If you're interested in learning more about the Earth, the Sun, and how the fact that we're hurling through space.
If you're interested in learning about these things that you haven't got any predetermined ideas about, then you can come and listen to us presuppose that we're hurling through space and in presupposed orbital motion as a presupposed sphere Earth based on a presupposed R-value debunked by flat Earth debate. You could do that if you want indoctrinating into the cult that obviously you're too dumb to have understood when you went through the original indoctrination according to these guys, if you now realise that the Earth's not what it's suggested to be based on the fact it's not measured as a sphere or navigated as a sphere.
What is it, 17,000 miles per hour? Is that what we're going? Are we
going to say that in a really high-pitched voice? Like, holy shit, we're travelling faster than the speed of sound? Yeah, that's fucking absurd.
Are we really? Are we?
Are we? No, we're not. No, but he had to drop it in a really high-pitched voice though, didn't he?
He made a mistake there. He's talking about the ISS supposed speed, not the Earth at around the sun at 66,000 miles.
We're travelling at over 1 million miles an hour around the Great Attractor.
Yeah, I was about to say. Yeah, and when you add up all those different tangential speeds from the changes in velocity, yeah, it's almost 1 million miles an hour.
Right.
And that's why the stars are always where they are year after year for thousands of years in the past and the future. How convenient.
It's absolutely ludicrous. That's why his pitch went up so high.
Did you just pull that number out of your...
I did. You know where I pulled it from. So
same place you pulled yours from. Out your ass.
You should consider all of this and consider checking out Brilliant, whether you are an...
Because we've got to bring the money in. I mean, it's not just the indoctrination. It's not just the paid wage. It's not just the paid education and the bullshit and the fame. We've got to make extra bank.
adamant defender of the Earth's curves.
So they're definitely on your side then. They're defending the curves that we take elevation angles from. Why would they do that? Sounds like they're thick. Brilliant. No, they should rename themselves stupid.
Or a professional scientist or a lifelong learner.
Professional scientist, as opposed to a man varying the presumed cause of an effect he observed in nature to see if it causes it or not. Professional. I mean, if you add that extra validity to the tagline you've strapped onto some dude that tells you a story, then obviously he's science, and everything he says is empirical. Or he could be offering actual empiricism, like proof, evidence, as Tyson put it.
Learner. Brilliant helps you master concepts of math, science, and engineering through solving fun, challenging...
Maybe you should read it if it's talking about science, but if it's endorsing the curve of Earth when you've actually got flat Earth measurements, then it's absurd, it's stupid, it's useless. Definitely don't go and buy this service.
Problems, and you can sign up for free to get access to weekly challenges. And as a bonus to...
There you go. They're showing elevation angle measurements from a curved surface. Oh no, they've got a presupposed R-value-based sphere Earth, with lines moving to the centre of it, with a radius marked. Where's the measurement for this? Just say radius. I'm just going to get up. It's too far away.
Yeah, but there's that failed education system again. That guy just proved it.
Well, no,
just
but
proved
he's
it's
doing
the failed education system. That he...
Yeah, but it was all a plan to first say the education system has failed, and then they're going to offer a new education system that you pay for.
Star Talk viewers, anyone up to the 19th...
You can all beg the question and sign up for free, apparently.
19th prime number that goes to brilliant.org/StarTalk will get 20% off the annual subscription.
Oh, I thought it was free to sign up. Oh, we got to pay for the
Hang on a minute.
indoctrination.
He's doing the same as you, Nathan. He's saying you can get this if you do that, and you're saying the same to your audience.
Am I?
Yeah, you're saying the show will be longer if there was just more of you.
Oh, yes, in that regard. I thought you were saying for money.
Yeah.
No, yes, in that regard I am. You're right. Yeah, all you got to do is share the show, and we would have been live right now. Yeah, you just didn't, did you?
Which helps you think like a scientist through guided course material.
Sorry, think like a scientist. The way you think like a scientist is observe a natural phenomena, and then go, I wonder what caused that. I think that caused it. So I'm going to vary that and see if it does cause it. That's how you think like a scientist. There you go. Didn't need brilliant. Needed me.
And the ability to track progress with stats. And
that's mathematics. Why would you say that in the next breath? You just talked about science. Oh, no. Definitely not about tracking statistics. When you're talking about science, that's a study of the physical and natural world that we inhabit. I mean, you can track statistics all day long, but it won't help you in your real world that you're actually experiencing.
Extra practice. If you like what you see and you want to watch more videos from Star Talk,
I don't, but we probably end up will doing so.
Hit the subscribe bar and click the...
No, I'm not going to subscribe to this shite. No, you're just indoctrinating people. We stand directly in violation of everything you stand for and can debunk everything you say. So I wouldn't be encouraging people to subscribe. If you are subscribed to Star Talk, unsubscribe. Just indoctrinating you. The guy's a charlatan. This man is a con man. He's a charlatan, a wizard, conning you. Lying to you about what science is.
A little button that gets you notifications every time that we put up a video. And don't forget to like and comment below with a topic of your own that you've been dying to get to the bottom of. All right, so...
Well, we got to the bottom of a flat Earth pretty long time ago. You're still here indoctrinating the world, though, aren't you? And telling you that they're dumb if they didn't accept the education indoctrination that was already given to them, whether they liked it or not in most instances.
Well, hey... For those of you who are flat earthers, we say it's okay as long as you don't run NASA. And
what, in case you don't run the people who indoctrinate you and lie about being in a sky vacuum? Now, why would we be running that? Obviously not. They're the people lying to you about what the nature of Earth is by telling you that they're in Narnia when they claim to be in a second law of thermodynamics violation sky vacuum to get the pictures from space that Tyson lied about earlier. They're not. They're liars. So what, so long as we're not running NASA, we'll still be indoctrinated? Yeah, we know.
For those of you who are
did we ask for their permission for what we observe and measure to be okay to be publicly stated? I don't remember asking for their permission for that.
We seem to need it after the fact. I mean, we didn't need it, but then suddenly we do, because permission's been granted to our opponents who stand in violation of us pointing out the truth of elevation angle measurements and flat earths that we use and navigate. So we didn't need their permission, but now we should be grateful to just even be here. Meanwhile, anybody who's looking at this subject will get promoted.
What you are, where you're allowed to get employment as a flat earther, publicly saying that.
Oh, right. If you declare yourself to be a flat earther, you get prejudice.
Mm-hmm.
Who are these two comedians? I don't think either one of them's that funny.
Hey, I'm upset because the other guy, not Neil deGrasse Tyson, he seems like an all right kind of fellow. The kind of fellow that we all have as a friend that is curious about things but isn't that bright. And I just feel like he's being played.
No, a guy came on the show last week and said that Chuck Nice is a failed comedian in comparison to the ones that get all the bookings. So he hooked up with Neil deGrasse Tyson, and this is where he's get his notoriety now. So whether that's true or not, I don't know, but that's what someone said last week.
Those
Nathan,
Heroes at Stooge, isn't it?
Okay.
He's the stooge in this, yeah? He's the bit of slapstick, the distraction, yeah? That's his purpose, to allow the bullshit to, yeah? So when the big bit of bullshit comes, he digests it with his comedic reaction. You're just making that up, you know? It allows the smoother transition of more bullshit to be digested.
Precisely. Nathan, I posted immediately after watching this video a direct question to Neil deGrasse Tyson. And I have all of the slides, screenshots in Master G. Can we go through that and see how people reacted? This is the surprise.
Is this starting with the full moon of Wednesday, October 8th?
No, it's after the pictures. That was for the selenium.
Right, well, I'll just put them up just so they've been...
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, just so they're on the show, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, you go ahead. Go ahead and comment on it, and then when you get to the screenshots, we'll go from there.
Okay, so lunar eclipse geometry. And then we've got... Yeah, that's pretty much what I saw. Impossible selenium eclipse.
Well, the lunar eclipse geometry is what they say has to happen. And then the selenium doesn't work with that geometry that they say needs to happen. So there's the contradiction. That's why it's an impossible eclipse.
Okay, got it. You should test it.
So what happened here is I commented on this very same broadcast, Round Earth, and I said, you should test it, because he said it. Neil deGrasse Tyson said, you should test it. I said, fine, I'll put it in quotes. You should test it. The radius value is beyond its limitation, Neil. You should test it, well said. Meaning, go do it. Go do what you told us to do, test things. You should test the radius value. And then a guy named Alex F says, which limitation, question mark. And then I posted the modus tollens, as you can see there. Do I need to go through it, or can we go to the next slide?
Read it.
Okay. So if P, then Q, not Q, therefore not P. If the Earth is a sphere with a radius of 3959 miles, P, then every horizon distance measurement must be no more than 1.225 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, Q, geometric horizon curve calculator. So some guy named Frankie and Benji Mouse decided to jump in when I'm trying to have this back and forth with Alex. And he puts in this, which I'll bring Brian into, but let's skip it for now. We're going to come back to it because it has to do with angle measurements and has to do with Polaris drops 1 degree for every 60 nautical miles you go south measurements. So that's 90 times 60 is 5,400 nautical miles from the North Pole to the equator. That gives us a circumference of 21,600 nautical miles. 21,600, 2 pi gives us radius of that long number, nautical mile. The number was refined by better measurements, okay? World Geodetic System, WGS, ellipsoid, 1984, and it goes on to go on. We'll come back to this because I want Brian on that one. Alex F. decides to reply. The fact that we have a horizon in the first place means curvature. And I don't know where you get those numbers from. They make absolutely no sense. Now, this is something you've said many times before. All you got to do is
what's he saying?
Globe.
He's saying the numbers you presented, as in Earth sphere radius 3959, 1.2 times the square root. He's saying that makes no sense. What, like a straw man? What, like your globe claim in the first instance doesn't make sense?
Yes. This is the funny thing. When you tell ballers what they actually should believe, they say, no, I don't believe that. But anyway, it's one of those moments. Next slide. I respond to Alex F. The horizon is claimed to be Earth curvature, so the radius of the Earth would place that supposed curve at a certain absolute distances based on the observer's height. It must match, but it doesn't. No, kept it real nice and easy. Alex F. responds, 10th man, sure, if you discard optical effects like refraction, which is a thing,
boom,
the sun would not...
That's his concession. If you ignore optical effects, so not geometric measurements then. I thought we were measuring it. Like the sphericity of Earth at the geometric limitation, the measurement. Well, if it's optical, we're not measuring Earth curve.
Oops. Yes. Now we get to that. So which is a thing, the sun would not... Now this is interesting. The sun would not even set in your non-model. Come on now. So then I respond, Alex F., refraction is real for sure, but you have 7/6R refraction already assuming Earth curve. And you assume the horizon is Earth curve by assuming we live on a globe and apply no real world perspective, which is how we see things getting smaller at distances, which eventually get too far to see. How was the radius value measured if we have real refraction, which changes with the weather hourly? Please provide evidence. Next slide. Some guy jumps in, not Alex, Lee B. He says, how we see things get smaller at distance, the sun and moon mustn't haven't gotten the memo. The sun and moon do not change size throughout the day, therefore they are not local. Even with your stupidly close measurement of the distance of the sun.
We can ignore, I don't know if you addressed Lee, but it's a red herring. Because you're talking about geometric measurements of the horizon. He's moved it onto a different angular size that doesn't change and ascribing it not changing in physical size. It's like, no, you're convoluting the main discussion point, which is the geometric limitation called Earth curve, claimed to be measured. It's been explained by the opponent, in this instance, not Lee, the other guy, that it's, well, Alex. Optical effects, refractive effects. Well, not geometric measurements then.
Yes.
Actually, Lee B in his next comment actually gives the game away with his stupidity.
Yeah, so of course, Lee B comes, because I didn't answer him, he said, look at Red's rhetoric for video showing refraction altering minute by minute.
So we can't be measuring Earth curve then. So if it's altering minute by minute, how are we going to measure this physical limitation in its geometry? It's Earth measurement, as Tyson puts it accurately so. So it's moving minute by minute. How the fuck are you going to measure it and get an R value from it then?
It gets better. Alex F. eventually replies to me, who I'm trying to have a one-on-one discussion with, but all these people jump in. Of course, we did not calculate the radius by looking at the horizon, genius, ad hom number one. That would be not a very smart way to do it. Oh, and since things get smaller due to the distance, why does that not happen to the sun? It should, according to your non-model. It doesn't care to explain, if you care to explain or whatever. Okay. Care also to explain why basic geometry tells me its elevation angle would never be below 15.4 degrees above the horizon, yet I see it set every day. Are you even good at basic geometry? So we'll get back to this in a minute.
Yeah, you've latched onto a straw man. He's thrown in the red herring, second attempt. And no, why are we talking about the angular size of the sun in this discussion when he's made the concession? So what he's done is he's levied away from the concession that guys had to make previously, probably the same bloody guy for all we know. But either way, at the point that he starts talking about it being refracted, you've won. So he's got to get a red herring in there quickly so that you can discuss a different point. So that gets lost in the discussion. But you won. Refracted, moving with minute by minute. How are you fucking going to measure it then?
Correct.
Yeah,
but let's go on, Brian.
Sorry, Kendrick, just say he kills himself with his claim about the sun in the end there, where he's talking about 15.4 degrees, because he's already after admitting saying two things. One, that the horizon is a refracted position, so it's not geometric. So he's giving away his globe, anything geometric to do with the globe. And then he's talking about the sun and 15.4 degrees. Well, what he's really talking about is the sun reaching a position in your view that will cause it to look refracted, which it does. It's called the sun mirage. So when you see a sun at the horizon in the evening time, you're not seeing a physical sun going behind the physical horizon. You're seeing the sun mirage. That's a mirage, right, caused by the sun, not the actual sun, whatever the sun is, at an optical phenomenon. So it's two optical phenomenons working at the same time. An optical horizon, because that's the only horizon we have, and an optical sun, not a physical sun or a physical horizon. This fellow, I've dealt with him before. This guy, he's very, very super entrenched, mega fundy. This guy.
Well, let's go to the next page, and I answer Alex F. I didn't talk to Lee. Got your very triggered, it seems, with a simple request. Ad homs, when he referred genius and basic geometry that I don't know. I recall Al-Biruni is credited for calculating the curvature of the Earth from atop of a mountain using the horizon, ? Care to retract your statement? Because he said no one stupid is going to, or whatever he said, no one's going to use the horizon to calculate or measure a curve. Yet the story is Al-Biruni did. So I said, would you care to retract your statement? That's after he measured the mountain from a flat baseline for its height required for an elevation angle. Care to explain the geometry? I never made any claims about the sun, a light in the sky. I did, however, ask for proof measurement for the radius of a sphere with 3959 radius. Give me just one, please. No calculations, measurement only. Cheers. He doesn't even know the Al-Biruni story. This was great. So that Lee jumped in and says, Frankie above gave you a way of measuring to find the radius. So that was that slide. We're going to go back with Brian. Okay, then I put to Lee B here. The measurement requires an elevation angle, 90 degrees, which requires a flat, straight, horizontal baseline. To get the angle using the Earth's horizon via the nautical sextant, are conceding the Earth is I forgot to put you. Are you conceding the Earth is flat then? Next slide. Alex F's response. Light in the sky, lamest excuses ever. He's the one who brought it up. Okay. It's the simplest observation ever to disintegrate your model. I don't know how to measure the curvature. I don't need to because I see the model works perfectly, meaning his model. And you use the tangent as the baseline for the elevation angles. Earth is very big. Get this. Don't fall off your chairs. You can use the surface of your base. You don't notice the difference.
So stop a sec. Sorry, tangent? Tangent to what? The physical limitation geometric sphere edge? That tangent point that you can't see because it moves with the bloody weather? Is that where you're getting your tangent from? No, I'm afraid not. Apparently, according to the other guy, it's all refracted. So if it's refracted, how are you going to get a tangent to it? You can't. Oh, what's that? It's all refracted. What's refraction? The light bending to your position. Is that a tangent? What, a straight line? You just told us how the line's bent and moves with the bloody weather because of how bent it is, always. So that's not a tangent either. So you need a tangent and you've bent your line to the horizon because it's refracted now. And furthermore, if you're getting angles, you're not using bent lines or bent surfaces. You're using flat lines and flat baselines because they're angles. So he's 6 ways from Sunday. Fucked.
He actually...
Well, go on.
Yeah, he says at one point there in that last comment, he said he brings up light in the sky, lamest excuses ever, right? Then he comes up with, when it comes to curvature, I don't know how to measure the curvature. I don't need to because I see the model works perfectly.
The model is the curvature, 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. We know how to measure it, and we've debunked it. So what, because you say the model works perfectly when we've debunked the model and its curvature assertion at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet? That nonsense you didn't know, therefore denied, because you didn't understand, but still assume the model works? That is the model. We've debunked it, dickhead.
Are you done, Brian?
Sorry, Brian.
Yeah, I'm not going to hold it up. Go ahead, man.
Okay, well, I just laughed so hard at that last statement. So he said again, you can use the surface as your base. Okay, well, thanks. That means it's flat. You don't notice the difference. So I wrote, it was immediate. I wrote back, you're making me laugh. Stop it. I don't have a
Stop
model.
second.
You do.
Stop
And
a
it
second.
assumes
Stop.
our value calculated, not measured.
Sorry. 1 second. I'm just going to read that again. You can use the surface as your base. You don't notice the difference, says Alex F. Just read that one more time. You can use the surface as your base. So yeah, you can, you do, you have to, and it's flat. It's an angle measurement. That's the baseline. So Alex, welcome to flat Earth. That's right, you can use the surface as flat and as your base, and you must. Because if it wasn't flat, it wouldn't give you an angle. Welcome to flat Earth, Alex F. Sorry to interrupt.
No. I'm glad because that's why I laughed. Go on, Brian. Go on.
Yeah, this guy, because I dealt with him in the past, and I'm sure everyone has spotted this already. But this guy, and I only briefly dealt with him like you're dealing with him here. I think only had 1 to and fro with him like this. This is one of these people who pre-assumes that we're all idiots, and he's got some kind of answers, or someone around him has answers. So he's very disrespectful. He gets very smart with you, but he absolutely buries himself on a regular basis within his comments. So he presumes that you're a stupid one, and he's presuming that he is not. Yet he's saying things like, you can use the surface as your base, you don't notice the difference. That tells you he has absolutely no understanding of this. He's just in an arena basically giving people guff.
Well, he lost the argument right there, obviously. And he's just doing what Neil and Chuck Nice did earlier, saying the education systems failed, subscribe to this, and we'll tell you, we're smarter than you. So he's got that attitude. So I write, you're making me laugh. Stop it. I don't have a model. You do, and assumes R value calculated, not measured. And your globe R value originally came from flat Earth elevation angle measurements to Polaris. Can't be achieved with diverging zeniths. Can't get an elevation angle from a curved baseline. Circle of equal altitude has a radius from the GP of the star to the observer's GP. There's thousands of miles of flat baseline. No such thing as a curved radius, my friend. Shh, don't say 90. Cheers. That was for his last statement. And then he responds, too bad Polaris drops 1 degree every 60 nautical miles you travel south. Good luck explaining that. Next slide, please. Alex, that elevation angle drop is subtracted from 90, zenith position being directly under it, moving away from it all the way to 0. That requires a flat, straight, horizontal, level baseline to read the angles. Welcome to Flat Earth.
I'm going to read that again. Alex F. That elevation angle drop is substituted from 90 degrees, zenith position being directly under it, moving away from it all the way to 0 degrees. That requires a flat, straight, horizontal, level baseline to read the angles. Welcome to Flat Earth. You said it far better than I did. Well done, Ted.
Then Alex replies, except the math does not add up.
Yeah, it
you
does.
did not even, I know, hang on, let me finish. So he goes, it did not even apply a shred of it. I didn't apply any math. Okay. Did you even, by looking at the FE model, Flat Earth model, of course, we don't have, at first glance, you can see that it's preposterous to claim that at the equator, Polaris would be at 0 degrees elevation angle. It's simply ridiculous and not demonstrable.
That's exactly what it is. You complete idiot. You Dunning-Kruger fool.
Yeah, he doesn't understand what an angle is or what it's measuring. Angles measure perspective. That's the point, Alex, you absolute buffoon. He's measuring perspective. So you're measuring a perspective drop of Polaris, not an actual drop.
Here we go. Alex, we don't have a model. Are you deaf? You lose at the get-go since elevation angles that you're talking about cannot work without a flat baseline. You can't even enter the argument anymore since your globe surface is said to be curved. Your argument dies from the get-go. And then Alex responds, last slide, I think. Yeah. So Polaris is 3438 nautical miles above the alleged flat surface. That is the height if it drops 1 degree every 60 nautical miles travel south. You cannot disagree on this. When did I ever say how tall, how high?
Hold on. So the height, it's elevation angle, like the elevation, height, elevation. Yeah, elevation angle. Yeah, drops 1 degree. What the angle? So the height angle, the elevation angle. Yeah, that's an angle off a baseline that's flat. So in this carrying on the discussion, because he's so Dunning-Kruger, he doesn't know he's lost. He's going to affirm it over and over again that we're going to be measuring angles and seeing a 1 degree drop. So you back away from it, and then the baseline, that's one part of an angle, and the line to Polaris, that's the other line of the angle, gets smaller. Yet that's a flat Earth baseline measurement, an elevation angle, and you're affirming that you will require a flat Earth to make this statement, you dumbo.
Well, not only that, Nathan. The first part says, so Polaris is 3,438 nautical miles above the alleged flat surface. Who claimed that?
Well,
go on.
Yeah, I'm just going to say, 1 second.
Yeah, he's trying to slip in multiple straw men to red herring away from his loss.
What he's doing here is he's after saying none of that can work on a flat plane. Then he's after actually giving you a calculation. I don't know if it's correct or not. A calculation that would work over a flat plane if Polaris was a physical thing that was a physical height, whatever, blah, blah, blah. He's presuming all these things. But he said, none of that will work over a flat plane. Anyway, here's the exact maths for it working over a flat plane. Do you know what I mean?
Well, the celestial navigation on their side, which is really our side, because it's angles to the stars from a flat baseline, it's never for the actual height. It's for the angular relationship. They don't even use it for this. So where did I ever say how far away Polaris was in distance? Did I even bring that in? No, he's throwing it in there to distract, as Nathan says. So then so that was 16 hours ago. And then this morning, because I didn't answer it, because it was ridiculous, he says, and look who ran away, laughable. So, of course, I answered him this morning. Again, this was the last one. When you continue to live in a delusional state of believing in the sphere Earth without a radius value consistent with what the globe model requires, and then claim angle measurements which require a flat baseline in order to achieve a perpendicular relationship to subtract from 90 degrees, that's called an admission. You've contradicted yourself along with your non-existing globe model. Cheers. That's the end of that.
Well, see that last comment from, and look who ran away, laughable. That's the exact, like, I get that off of so many of these fundies, and that's the exact thing I got off of him. He's one of these people. It's like when Mike Tyson knocked someone out, right, back in his heyday, and he knocked someone out, and that person woke up in the hospital the next day, right? It's like that person ringing Mike and saying, look who ran away. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was over, like, do you know what I mean? Like, it was over, the fight was over, the race was over, you lost, that's that. You know, it's like, the guy obviously lost, and he done the same with me. I had to go back to him twice. He kept saying, look who ran away. It's like, ran away from what? There was nothing to run away from. You were finished because you're an idiot who thinks I'm stupid. Do you know what I mean? So he's presuming that I'm the idiot, or you're the idiot, and he's the smart one. This is what he's presuming.
Maybe he's confusing getting the last word with winning the conversation.
Yeah, he's appealing to the guy in the audience that didn't follow the debate and the discussion, and then just sees the last comment going, oh, so you ran away then. So you go, all right, well, I gleamed that this guy, Alex F., was a globe believer, and I gleamed that 10th Man was a flat earther, and on surface level, he's saying that the other guys ran away. Obviously, therefore, he won. That he's appealing to the thickest person that could be reading this.
I went to bed. I didn't run away.
No, but if that was the
I went
last
to bed.
comment, now based on the fact that you'd already won, there would be no reason for you to come back to this discussion thread. You'd won twice. So what's the point in coming back? Well, he knows that. You've won. You've handed him in his ass. Maybe he doesn't realise because he's so Dunning-Kruger. But either way, if he can assert victory, that's good enough for him. I asserted victory at the end of the thread. I had the last word, saying I won. So I won, because he's thick. And anybody reading it will think that's the case also. And he's appealing to that thicko. And himself, delusional.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, once
I mean,
once a person.
sorry, Ken.
No, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I go after.
Go ahead. Okay, no, I was
Okay,
going to
okay,
say, you know, I only have so much. I don't have. Hang on, I'll go ahead. It'll be quick. I don't have the patience of Job. I mean, I can only take so much myself. So it's like if it's a moving back and forth debate, argument, whatever you want to classify this on chat level, I'm okay with it. As long as it stays on the subject, you don't ad hom, you don't do all the things that they end up doing. But it got to be that way. And I just stuck to the points of the argument and they kept changing. And finally, you just get tired of typing. So it's like, okay, I've already said it. You've already changed what I've said. You've already contradicted yourself by telling me you don't use the horizon for measuring Earth curve when Al-Biruni is credited for going up a mountain using the horizon to get Earth curve. He doesn't even know his own claim.
Yeah, the supposed godfather of geodesy, Al-Biruni, did something that was really stupid according to Alex F. Now, I don't know about Al-Biruni being
That's right.
smart. I don't know about Al-Biruni existing. The point is that he is throwing under the bus someone he may not even know about, or even if he does, who is claimed to be the godfather of geodesy, which is surveying, which is, do you know what I mean, earth measurement. Yeah, do you know what I mean? It's like this Alex F. telling you that, you know what I mean? And then they all do that, though. They all do that thing he did at the end about the runaway thing.
Yeah, it's like an evolution is saying, Darwin's so stupid, but I believe in evolution. What?
Yeah, he's
It's
unbelievable.
the Dark Knight. It's the Dark Knight from Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Come back here, I'll bite your ankles off.
Yeah.
Listen, Brian, you want to go to that second slide of the screenshot?
Yeah, one
and
second.
give this. I don't know about this. The WGS. You know that better.
What do you want me to go to? Frankie the Benji Mouse? That is it?
Yeah.
Frankie the Benji Mouse, is it?
I'll read it. I'll read it for you so you can respond to it. Polaris drops 1 degree for every 60 nautical mile you go south. Measurements. So that is 60 times 60 equals 5,400 nautical mile from North Pole to equator. That gives us a circumference of
90, Nathan.
No, he's after just ruining it.
It says 90 times 60.
90 times 60. Sorry, I'm reading it at quite a distance. It's quite small on my screen. It's very difficult, very blurry. Anyway, I'll try and fathom my way through it, through the blurry, small text. That gives us a circumference of 21600 nautical miles, 21,600 over 2 pi gives us a radius of 3437.74677,078 nautical mile. This number was refined by better measurements. World Geodesic System, WGS, ellipsoid of 1984, compiled from 300 years of measurements. Equatorial radius A equals 6378137 meters equals 3443918 nautical miles. Polar radius B equals 6356752,314 meters, which equals 3432.372 nautical miles. Mean radius 2A plus B in brackets over 3 equals 6371008.770 meters. Hopefully I've put the decimal place in correctly, which equals 334 0.069 nautical miles. Start measuring, prove me wrong.
Yeah, I'll pull all this apart. Okay, so let me just 1 second now. 1 second now. Give me a second. So he gets an app on the go here. The first thing he gave his game away when he said 5,400 nautical miles. That's the first thing, because what he did is he already told you about the thing that's measured, right? So elevation angles, 5,400 nautical miles, they're minutes of degree. Degrees are measurements of perspective. So someone measured in a horizontal from the North Pole, the GP point of Polaris, to the equator, 5,400 nautical miles, right? And when they did that, right, they got a radius. Now, then he went on to say that gives you a circumference of 21,600. No, it doesn't. 5,400 nautical miles gives you a circumference of 33,912. So straight away, he was wrong. Immediately, he was wrong, right? And then he went on, right, to start laying out some maths, right, as if he was some kind of clever fella, and starts talking about the World Geodetic System, the WGS 1984. See, most of these people, if you ask them, and I'm not going to say it here, right, because it doesn't, but most of these people, if you ask them, what's a datum? Because that's what he's referring to there, datum, the ellipsoid of 1984. It's a datum. What's a datum in surveying? Most of them can't answer. They don't know what the hell they're talking about. They start bringing up things like this, and they don't know what they are. You ask them, what is a datum in surveying? They can't tell you.
Brian, can I just stop you a sec?
All right, go on.
Only because you just brushed over the best point.
Oh, what? I don't think I brushed over. What is it?
Well, you spotted it, but it might not seem significant to you. But this is mathematically, you spotted that what they do is instantly assume a ball. So when they've taken these distances, to calculate the circumference, they've calculated a spherical circumference as opposed to the 33 that you would say you would get from the distances.
Yeah.
So really important point. They instantly assume their ball, which is in denial of what you've just measured. They make it a spherical R, don't they? Which means you get a smaller rate, a circumferential measurement.
Yeah, because the R of 21,600 is 3,440. That's the R of that. Yeah.
So from that point on, there's nothing to do with him. Yeah, because he's instantly perverted what he's done. He's taken those known measurements and he's just suddenly said, yeah, and if you put it on a sphere, this is how I validate my R. But it's just maths. He's got no reason to put it on a sphere because these are flat earth measurements taken from a flat plane angled to Polaris. Where's he getting a sphere to put them onto to change his R value, his circumference value?
Well, that's exactly it, you see, Adam. He just pre-assumed that 5,400 nautical miles worked out at 21,600 because he pre-assumed it's going over a globe of a radius of 3,440 nautical miles. So you're 100% correct. He's just pre-assuming all that. But that also tells us that the fact that that's measured, that 5,400 is measured horizontally, that means the rest of the 21,600 has to be measured horizontally. Because what he's talking about there, when he mentioned 21,600, he's talking about a straight line distance from 90 degrees south right to the North Pole and back across to another 90 degrees south. So it's the length of two corresponding longitude lines. So that's actually what that is. When they could bring up 21,600, because that's exactly where they got their radius from. They just bent the two longitude lines to meet each other, and then they took the radius, which was 3,440 nautical miles of that. Then they just turned that into statute miles, which was 3,580. 3,500 and 3,958. 3,958 with change, point whatever, and they rounded it off by 3,959. So that's what they did there. That's like none of that happened. So why I was going on to the next part as well, because he wants to start talking about measurements, right? But this shows the second thing that he obviously, because the first thing he's got completely wrong,
right? He doesn't know where the 21,600 comes from. And Adam is 100% correct. He pre-assumed that that the line from the North Pole to the equator was a curved line that matched the radius of 3,440 nautical miles. But then he moves on to measurements with the datum, right, the WGS-84, not realizing that all these measurements he laid out here, these supposed things that maths he laid out here, none of them were the measurements. The measurements were all in Cartesian, 2-dimensional and 3-dimensional Cartesian, which are all parallel, which require parallel zeniths and require a horizontal baseline. Can't have X, Y, or X, Y, Z with a horizontal baseline. So all the measurements that he's talking about there were all measured on a flat plane. And I can prove that 10 ways from Sunday. They all just convert them to latitude, longitude, and he already begged the question above there. He already had begged the question above, to put him onto his globe, not understanding latitude, longitude is a flat grid map. Sorry, it's a flat grid measurement of flat elevation angles. That's what gave us the latitude, longitude, and Cartesian and polar. They're all flat as well. There is no coordinate system that is actually used in reality, right? Besides their ECEF system, which is only a back calculation of latitude and longitude and Cartesian, and it's a completely false system. But outside of that mathematical nonsense, there was no real world coordinate system that references a sphere in any way, shape, or form. They're all based on flat plane. And I can prove that 10 ways from Sunday any day.
But like, why would you have to prove something that's necessitated, like in the definition of something, like if you're getting an angle, why would you have to prove that those lines need to be straight?
You don't. It was covered by Adam, and yeah, it was good that you highlighted it, because that is the main point of this, isn't it? If you're going to take flat Earth measurements and then say, yeah, but if it's on a sphere, it's like, no, that's the end. That's the stop point. You're measuring a flat Earth. That's it. Okay, what you do with it afterwards.
Well, exactly.
No, I ain't saying you can't prove it. I ain't saying you can't prove it. Like, you can. It's demonstrable in every angle you ever take. But like, I don't see why somebody would even ask you to prove it. It's
well, they don't understand it, John. That's the thing. He doesn't understand how the process works. Like, let's just say elevation angle. This guy, you can be sure that Frankie the Benji Mouse and Alex F, if they know anything about elevation angles, they pre-assume that the baseline, let's say the zenith, the adjacent length, is going to be curving over a globe surface, right? So if you were out to do, and you were doing a measurement, right, at sea with a marine sextant, and you measured, let's just say, 3 radii for 3 circles of equal altitude, and you didn't even make the circles, you just measured the radii, right? That's in 3 different directions from your boat, right? You're using the horizontal baseline, which is mean sea level, for your adjacent, right? You have to use a horizontal, but they believe that they are bending lines. So they're believing that those radii are bending, they're curved radii. That's what they have to believe first. But then, this is the thing, and this brings us back to haversine. If you've already measured on a globe with your marine sextant, if the measurements, all your measurements, let's say your distance measurements to the GP of the stars or whatever, are all already on a globe, then why would you need to then, like, via the universal transverse Mercator projection, why would you need to distort what you've already supposedly measured on a globe, and then undistort it and need the haversine formula to put it back onto a globe? If it's already measured on a globe, why would you need to go through these other 2 steps? Why would you need to do that?
Well,
I mean, who would do that?
If Santiago wasn't to be touched and your orders are always followed, then why would he be needed to be transferred off the base?
It's exactly the same problem with why does geodesy even exist if you're measuring. They say that they're measuring the curvature of the Earth with geodesy, right? Because planar surveying does it using Cartesian coordinates, but they need to curve all the lines. So they say that geodesy exists, but if the Earth really was curved, planar surveying would measure it, and geodesy wouldn't even need to exist because it would already be measured by planar surveying. They're doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, a planar surveyor and geodetic surveyor are doing exactly the same thing. They're using the same tools. You can only measure a certain distance, and that's something that Bev points out, or has pointed out for years, with the tools. He calls it tool abuse when people start making claims that are beyond the tools' specifications. So you can only measure so far with the tools. They only do so much with the tools. You know, fair enough, you can measure angles, like Presidio Mountains and stuff like that with, and the azimuth on the theodolite and things like that. You can do that. But as far as a direct horizontal measurement, an elevation, taking of an elevation or whatever, you can only do that with like up to 200 feet or something with a theodolite, or an auto level. Sorry, auto level. So the thing is that it's like if the planar surveyor is not measuring curvature, why would a geodetic surveyor be measuring it? Because if it was there, the planar surveyor would already have measured, or would already have measured it. Isn't that right, Anthony?
Yeah, Anthony. Yeah, Anthony's right. You're right, and it seems to be a common trait because Andrew Thomas Young took refraction studies from a plane surface, and then said, "But the Earth isn't flat." And then what did he say? We must do geometric considerations. So yeah, it's all planar surveying. It's all Andrew Thomas Young getting everything from a flat plane, but because he's got a reified globe, they do the haversine formula on one thing, then they have to make geometric considerations for the other thing. And there you go. It's just a common trick of theirs. Nathan, I posted the last response that just came 3 minutes ago. And then I got to leave the show today. So let me read that if I may. Tell me when you got it.
Yeah, go ahead.
James Randy Spirit, 3 minutes ago. 10th man, how cute. The guy that believes in something he has not a single piece of evidence for calls us delusional. Right back at you. Flat earthers can't even explain the movement of the sun in a way that match reality. Look who tumbled down the rabbit hole.
Wow.
Awesome. Anyway, this is on Neil deGrasse's video chat, so feel free to go there and comment if you want. But great show. I'll catch you guys tomorrow.
Did that dude just ignore all the points that you made and said that you didn't have any evidence after you pointed out evidence?
No, he's on our side. He's just he forgot to put quotations on. That's what the guy said.
Oh, I thought it was the same guy you were talking about earlier responded to you. Oh, my bad.
No. This is a new guy. He's a flat earther, and he just rounded it off nicely.
Yeah, you know, the thing about it is that with these people is like that last comment, like, could have been seen as a Glober comment, because that's like a carbon copy of the comments you get. Like that's just sarcasm from a flat earther, because all you get is those exact comments, no matter what, and it's not all coming from the same person, all different people, but they all think the same stupid shit. You know what I mean? You present proof to them, most of the time they don't understand what you've presented, so they're asking you for proof, right? Even though you've given it to them, but they don't understand it, so they don't see how it's proof, because they're looking for something that they actually don't understand when you give it to them. And then out of maybe 1 out of every 10 of them is pretty smart, and they know it's proof, but they can't admit it. So they then try to give you hassle over some other thing, or they try and wrangle their way out of it being proof. But 9 out of 10 of them don't know it when you give them proof. They don't understand what an elevation angle is. You show them what an elevation angle is, and they can't grasp, like a man Alex F., they can't grasp what this is and the distance that it would measure. They can't grasp that in their mind to actually place it on their globe. They just can't, excuse me, they can't think past their globe. They're literally, their minds are constrained by the globe, because they actually don't have the intellect to get past it most of the time. And I'm sorry to say that, but a lot of that is true.
Hey, Brian, have you asked any of the people that comment in your comment thread that housekeeping question about level yet?
No, I haven't really commented back to anyone on my latest video because of yesterday. I was browned off with it yesterday or all the arguments. So I never commented back. So I didn't when that. So since that question has been kind of formulated the other day, I just didn't have any. I wasn't commenting on anyone, so I didn't have any reason to ask.
I am extremely curious to see how they respond to it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I don't see where they go. I would like to see where they try to squirm, but they ain't got really no place to go.
Well, what about? Is there any evidence that the I was going to think of one for the haversine formula because that really, if we had a housekeeping question that destroys the whole haversine formula debacle, that would be interesting too, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
because that would be connected to that. Go on.
Well, it's just like that's just like at the end of a logical train wreck, you know. Wow, they take all kinds of steps in the wrong direction to even apply it and say that you're on a sphere, you know.
Well, if I asked you this, John, as a glober, if I said to you, is there any evidence that the haversine formula is a necessary step in celestial navigation? What would you say?
See, celestial navigation was never one of my strongest things. I would just probably do a Google search, and if I found it, I would just leave a link. Say, duh, you know. So that's about the extent of the argument there, right?
No, it's not. It's calculating the distance between 2 points on a globe.
Yeah, so is there any
the
evidence that
haversine,
it's necessary? Sorry.
right, but the haversine, they've incorporated it into celestial navigation books. So they think that just because it's in a book on celestial navigation, you can't do it without it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but still, is there any actual, like, I mean, just because it's in a book doesn't mean that there's evidence. If you know what I mean, that doesn't match up as evidence. A lot of stuff are in books.
Right.
So
right. Yeah. That's
what's the evidence that that step is necessary is the thing. So we're not denying it's not. We're not saying it's not in a book. We're not saying it's it's not proposed. I'm saying what is the evidence that it's necessary.
I don't.
To turn the elevation angle into a curved surface.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I can think of. It. Right, but it's one of those slippery slopes, you know, because they don't really make a.
I think you've got him there, Brad.
Claim.
Yeah, see, that's the thing about it, though. Either way, John, it's a good question because it puts them in a position where they have to, if they know what you're talking about, they have to go prove it. If they don't know what you're talking about, they're going to come back with some really stupid shit. You know what I mean? Because if, let's just say in your debate with Ruhif, right? And I think One Deck has already summed it up, right? The real truth of why they require it, right, is because they need to turn an elevation angle into a curved surface. But if you go back to your debate with Ruhif was claiming, right, that he was using a curved surface. Remember, he was trying to add in greater than 7/6R to flatten out what would be a curved surface for his measurements to the GPs. He was doing that, yes? If you remember correctly, John.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. That was hilarious. Yeah. In his 25-minute rant. Yeah. That was one of the things I never got to address because they kept cutting me off. Yeah.
Yeah. So he spent 25 minutes trying to wrangle in some kind of greater over 7/6R into his presentation to allow him to curve the adjacent of an elevation angle. Now, if he did that, right, in reality, let's say in reality he did this, right, mathematically, let's say, right, not he measured a curved surface, but mathematically, if he already mathematically placed that distance along the adjacent on a curved surface that matched the radius of 3959 miles, then Why would you need the haversine formula? It's already supposedly on the globe. Why would you need to then place it on the globe again? Take it off and then put it back on. Come on.
Them not allowing me to ask that question on the show is why, you know, I said Ruhif was the one that, you know, showed me the trick, because he really, 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 really didn't want to talk about that.
No, because even from, let's just say if we go with...
Just expand on that. What do you mean?
Go
on.
When they applied the haversine formula, and he said he applied the haversine formula, he did it openly. And then they showed me a picture of these circles of equal altitude on a globe, you know, and I was like, why'd you apply that transformative equation? I never got to ask why he applied a transformative equation, because, I mean, I only got one sentence out before I was shut down. So, you know, it was him making the claim that showed me how they were doing the trick.
Yeah, but he applied the haversine formula after he had already claimed to be measuring over a curved surface.
Right. And that's why when you're talking about it, like, that's why you have to kind of formulate it like that, because it's a failure in logic, you know. If you're already measuring a curved surface, then why are you transforming it into one?
But that's part of where my question comes from. Is there any evidence that the haversine formula is a necessary step in celestial navigation? Because
no,
for them, did it? Sorry?
No, there isn't. It's not necessary.
No,
it's used for calculating the distance. So if you were at sea and you wanted to get to New York, you could find your position, get your bearing, and off you go. After that, yeah, you could use the haversine formula to figure out how far it is from where you are based on your now calculated longitude and latitude position and New York's known longitude and latitude. So you could have that extra bit of information. That's what it provides. It's not necessary for celestial navigation.
No, but part of the reason why I'm asking this and why I think it's a good question is that it's a trick question. Because if they're already claiming to be measuring these distances and circles of equal altitude on a globe, because that's what they're claiming, when they put that angle at the center of their globe, right, basically, right, and they measure this distance along their surface, that is, so let's just say they're saying that someone's in a boat with a marine sextant, and they measure a 45-degree elevation angle, right? They do go through all the processes, and they measure a 45-degree elevation angle. They then bring that 45-degree elevation angle to the center of their globe, and which gives them a 2,700 nautical mile distance that they then bring along the surface of their globe as an arc, right? That's what they do. That's what they're claiming, not what they do in reality, but that's what's the claim that happens. So when you bring that arc that they're measuring, 2,700 nautical miles, in reality, that's supposed to be a radius, right? Now, radius lines don't curve. And it's supposed to be the radius to a circle, which is a two-dimensional shape. So the minute they bring that angle to the center of their globe, well, the minute they measure it, it's over, right, at the surface. But the point is that when they bring it to the center of their globe, they're then measuring a claim without making the claim outwardly, a curved radii. So the point is that if you ask them, is there any evidence that because they don't need the haversine formula to do that, to make that measurement along the surface of their globe, right? They're not needing that at that point. So at that point, they're already claiming to be measuring a curved surface, right? So why then, like when I say, well, if I was asked the question, is there any evidence that the haversine formula is a necessary step in celestial navigation? Any of them that says yeah, they're instantly denying that the angle was brought to the center of their globe. They're instantly kind of like, in a way, tacitly admitting that it was all measured flat. Because why would you need the haversine formula if you've already been measuring from the center of a globe along its curved surface? Why would you need the haversine formula?
That's why I said there's a question in there, but there's steps in logic that you have to walk down to get to that question, you know? And that's why I've never been able to formulated into, you know, I mean, I ain't saying it can't be. I just don't know the words to formulate it succinctly into one sentence.
Well, the thing about it is by asking that question, like, if you ask, is there any evidence the haversine formula is a necessary step in celestial navigation? If they say yes, then they're denying all their other claims of bringing the angles to the center of the globe. They're denying all that because it's at the point of the haversine formula that they're claiming to make it into a globe. If they say no, right, then what they're claiming beforehand, right, will be shown to not be workable.
Right.
No matter
but that's,
what they do, they're trapped either way, if you understand.
yeah, I do,
so
but
right.
they got to take those logical steps either way, you know, and that's the thing. Having the words to have them already take those logical steps within the sentence structure, so that the question kind of answers itself.
Sorry, guys. Yeah, I think the haversine is a good one to have, and I'm trying to. I'd like to know more about that and look how it actually works, how the formula is used in a particular scenario. But then it goes back to what we said originally: is they jump in the gun and you're skipping past the angle because that's the first thing they've got to do. We know this, and the haversine's great, but don't let them skip past the elevation angle because that haversine's further down the road. As soon as you've got that elevation angle, you're already using a flat baseline, a horizontal Earth flat plane. So
Yeah, and
it ends
that's
right there.
That's one reason I said it was good as a supplementary question. Really, it's the anti-flat earther question, isn't it? When they hear the elevation angle, it becomes a problem for them then.
You see, I agree with one day. Yeah, as soon as you... Sorry, one more.
No, I was saying I would like to... I've used the haversine in a few conversations, debates, but and I've looked through it a little bit, but I'd like to actually see an example of how it's used, like measuring from A to B on between two locations, and then how that... What is is there just one formula? Or is there different formulas? And how is
we'd like to see a video with the transformation, basically, like to really clarify what's going on, because it is a really complicated thing.
That was Ruhif's video, the 25-minute video that I wasn't allowed to respond to. That's what he did. Just watch that video. He shows you all the tricks. I mean, he's very good at teaching how to trick somebody, I guess.
Yeah, but that's from a different perspective. We need a flat earther video, an FED panelist video that'll explain just exactly how they do it, step by step, with visual support.
What a lovely day!
It's over. As soon as they say they need a tangent plane, it's over. It's an admission that they can't do this on the curved surface of their globe. But the fact that they then bring that angle to the center and start trying to claim they're measuring along the surface of their globe from the center, that means they're already supposedly measuring a globe along a globe surface. But then they take these measurements, right, that will have given them their coordinates and should have solved all their problems. They then take them and put them onto the universal transverse Mercator map and distort the whole lot. And then they undistort it, right, by turning them into correct straight line distances with the haversine formula, but then they add in or to curve those lines. Because the haversine formula, the distances will always be correct. In reality, the distance you will travel will always be correct with the haversine formula. But the point is that it's not the distance you're traveling, it's the fact that they've curved what is just a straight distance.
Right. Well, Brian, look, this is all very... I know you've thought this through. I know you got clarity in this division, right? but like the whole haversine formula thing and what it actually does, like if a good supporting video that just like basically for the retards that are clear at mind, but are just not that predisposed for all the talents to get a quick grasp through math and all that, a good overlook at what really happens with the haversine formula and with good visual support, like every step of the way, then these type of explanations that you are giving will be received with much more grasp. That's what I'm saying.
Well, what if we done a response video to Ruhif's, like actually responded to Ruhif's 25-minute preaching? You know,
I'd love that.
Yeah,
I'd love
I was gonna suggest that when you mentioned it, John. Yeah.
because I never got to respond to it.
That would be cool.
On air.
Yeah, well, let's do
But
that
could
tomorrow.
somebody please make that video
We'll do it tomorrow.
like with good visuals? That would be great.
Let's do it tomorrow. That will be our
Yeah,
response video
let's do
for tomorrow. We'll just respond to
Ugh.
Ruhif's haversine swindle video. What are you going to label it? Let's give it a title.
The haversine swindle.
The haversine debacle.
No, I thought you just did, Nathan.
Haversine swindle. Right, it's John's baby. He can decide what it's going to be called.
I like swindle.
Okay, swindle.
Can I just chase? I'm listening to what Owen's asking for. I don't really know what more you need to know unless you want to go into the maths, which nobody does. Unless you want to go into this derivation.
Oh no, but I'm not talking about I'm just talking about what basically a video. What is the haversine formula, and what does it do? Like, how is it used? Right, something really preliminary, you could call it, on a mathematical scale.
It says it here. So what?
No, but that's just text. That's
Owen,
just
if you're going to
text.
ask someone to do something and someone says it's here, don't immediately start rumpusing them while they're literally doing what you've asked them.
I'm just kind of desperate.
You just got to shut up. You just got to listen.
Read this, but if I was to explain it simply, the haversine formula works out on any sphere, but it's been tweaked to match the longitude-latitude system placed onto a ball. So what it doesn't do, all it does when you put the figures in, is work out the relative positions on the ball. Yeah, but it could be any two positions because it just calculates the differentials between the longitude and latitude positions. In doing so, it draws a line between here and here, which is equivalent to the equator of Great Circle route. Think of that as the North Pole, and you're going to go all the way around to yourself. In the theory of the mathematics, which is the long
It's a mathematical net that just drapes around this globe that they want it to be. I get that. But a good, like, actual animation-based visual representation with voice spoken, that would be great. That would be so much more than just text, because now just because you explained it, I already understand it better than I would ever from trying to read that text, you see.
Owen, understand it's just a conversion that allows you, through mathematics, to take the input, the longitude, latitudes, and it calculates the distance, of this great circle route, which matches the distance. That's all it does. It doesn't actually apply to the map, the terrain itself. The map and the terrain are just the input coordinates, and all it does, it doesn't know this is Paris, it doesn't know it's Texas, wherever, it doesn't matter. It's just inputting grid coordinates and calculating that. That's all it's doing.
I get that. And all I'm saying is I would love to have like a good, elaborate, calm story of how this all works with visual support, right? That's very dynamic. That would be fantastic. That would like help the world so much.
I think that's what I was saying originally. I don't think it would do any harm. I understand there's a formula to convert myself, but that was my point originally. Just it won't do any harm to have some more input and see it differently in a visual. It'll help the situation, if anything.
I nominate Brian and Adam to do it because I'm lazy.
Yes, I agree. That will
I
make
nominate
it.
you to get off your arse, right? Go to YouTube and type in haversine formula explained and watch one.
You know something interesting
Yeah,
about
but that's going to be a baller probably to do.
Brian's the best. Brian's the best at visual. I gotta give it to him. He draws them pictures. I get it.
Look, the problem is there's plenty of haversine formula YouTube videos out there. I bet there are, but they're going to be globers. They're going to be try to be weaselly. I just want this clear-cut thing that's just perfectly honest, right? Without all the globe nonsense.
Well, I think one of the interesting things about the haversine formula is like you can apply it at the equator, right? When you're looking at the Mercator projection, because they consider that a great circle route, right? And then they assume that the longitude lines are the same as the equator in circumference, right? So it's not a latitude-based system. It doesn't work on any latitude but the equator. But
there's the thing. It doesn't actually work at the equator either, John. It's the equator is the one that it doesn't work on. What I mean is that nobody travels the equator. They put that in there as a supposed great circle route because they have to, because they're claiming all the longitude lines are meeting around the great circle. Then the equator is also a great circle. But nobody, no ship, no airplane, nobody travels along the equator because the equator is a circle. And that's what kills them. You see,
right, I'm not talking about travel.
circles.
I'm just talking about mathematical application and how you turn it into the globe Earth. You can do it using the equator or any line of longitude, but it doesn't work with any of the other latitude lines because they're smaller circles.
Yeah. Look, I'm not getting onto here, but you just kind of cut off the crescendo, the most important point of what I'm saying. Now, I understand what you're saying, and I know you weren't doing it on purpose. But the most important thing that I said there was that great circle routes aren't circles. They're not circles. People have to, just because they call them a great circle route, it's what QE calls a Jedi mind trick. People keep on thinking of them as a circular route. They're not. They're just a distance that is curved around a globe longitudinally, mostly longitudinally. But all that distance is, you can add another formula after that if you want to straighten back out that distance, and it'll just be a straight line again. See, this is the trick they pull. So great circle routes aren't circles. If great circle routes existed, then the equator would be used as a great circle route, but it is not. Nobody uses it because because why? Because the equator is a circle. That's why they don't use it, because it is a circle. Great circle routes are straight line routes that they curve around our globe with the haversine formula. But as I said, you can just straighten them back out if you want mathematically. That won't change them. Sorry, come on.
I was just trying to speak to the eloquence of it. Damn it, Brian. It's, everything about heliocentrism is just really elegant. I wouldn't say eloquent, it's elegant, but it's so wrong. It's like seeing a pig in a prom dress,
Yeah, they did a good job of making it be attractive, that's for sure. Well, I'll put it this way, you could go and you could buy a very expensive rifle, let's say an antique rifle, but everything is lovely on it, and you could have all the brass or anything like that, kind of or gold engraving, whatever, some really old, really nice antique rifle. Or you could buy a $50 AK from somewhere in Walmart. Which one are you going to use if you need to defend yourself? Do you know what I mean? Are you going to the one shot rifle from antiquity, or are you going to use the AK? You know what I mean, which you can load magazines into. It's got for $50 at Walmart. Think of it like that. Reality is flat out. They want to give you something attractive, which is the globe.
Sorry, I popped out there a minute. I missed some of that. So basically, what we're saying is, from a navigational point of view, finding your location, you can take 3 shoots of luminaries to acquire your location, and you'll have 3 distances then to the GP of them luminaries, and a measurement to them, which is a straight line elevation angle measurement. But then by assigning a formula to it, you're going to turn that into a globe, curved line globe, as part of a great circle or a circle route. Is that what we're saying?
Well, yeah, it starts with. Sorry, someone is talking.
That's me. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. I thought you were going to say a bit more.
I'm new.
But
Sorry, yeah, no, I'd finished there, Brian. I was just asking for confirmation of that. I don't know who the guy was saying anything.
I know answers. No answers. Well, really, what the real question is here, if like we get down to the brass tacks of it, is if they are already claiming to be measuring along the surface of their globe before they place these measurements that are measured. Now that's not calculated, measured, right? If they're already claiming to be measuring these distances, right, in circles of equal altitude on their globe, then why did they place them onto the Universal Transversal Mercator map, only to have to take them off that map again and reconvert them onto a globe? Why would you need to do that? It's two completely unnecessary steps, wouldn't you think? Like, why would you do that? What's the point of this? Makes no sense.
Well, to reinforce the idea that the Earth is a globe. Why else?
See, the thing is,
Nathan,
they're not on Adam.
What, Eli's trying to get in, I think. He's just texted.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that so. Sorry, Brian. Just
No worries, Adam. No. No, just saying, if they are already measuring a globe, which is what they claim, which is what Ruhif claimed. He claimed to be already using a globe, and he measured a curved adjacent. Now, the adjacent, right, there's 3 lines in a triangle. There's the hypotenuse, which is the angle line. There's the opposite, which is the line from the hypotenuse down. And then there's the adjacent, which is the baseline between both of them, that connects both of them. So, okay, it's connected to. So, Ruhif was claiming to be measuring a curved adjacent. So that means he's claiming to be measuring something that doesn't exist, a curved radius. But he's claiming to be who he claimed that he was measuring, and they do the same claim within pseudo celestial navigation, because that's what I have to call it, because it's not reality, where they start placing angles at the center of the globe and using parallel light rays, right? When they start doing that and measuring distances along the surface of that globe, then the fact that that's already a load of rubbish, but they're claiming to do it, then why would you need to take those measured distances when you already have your coordinates and you know all the coordinates and no need to change it? Why would you need to take them off of your globe, place them onto the Universal Transversal Mercator map to distort the whole lot, and then undistort them and put them back on your globe? Seems to be completely pointless steps to me. Why would you need to do that if you've already been measuring them on the globe? Is it that you weren't measuring anything on a globe and everything was being measured flat and you needed to distort what you measured to then undistort it and place it on your globe? Is that a possibility?
That's obvious by the fact that they're measuring angles.
That's probably why it'd be good to see that video again, because you can't get an angle from a curve. He has to get the angle from the flat baseline first, yeah, and get his angle and distance. Then the formula's applied, isn't it, in haversine? Not before. Don't you need your distance first to then convert?
It's already dead in the water before they get to the haversine. It's as soon as they're measuring angles, that's it.
What we're saying about skipping past angles, but we know that. But it's good to know about the formula and what's. We know it's a formula and it converts a distance to a curve, We know that, but is anything else to it? Do we need to know what the formula is? Let's have a look at how it's used. I think we're doing it tomorrow anyway, aren't we? I think.
Doesn't convert a distance to a curve. It provides a distance based on spherical trig, yeah. After you then re-put everything back onto a longitude latitude grid that fits on a ball. When you've put it all on a ball, then you can use angles, internal angles of the ball, to calculate the differences of the half theta. That's kind of what you're trying to attain, this angle between the 2 points from the center of the, so from point A to the center of a ball to point B. You're trying to, that's what the majority of the formula is doing, is well, you have to convert that. That's your conversion bit. You input, you change the longitude latitude into radians, put it in to give you this theta angle. The theta angle is representative of a segment of a great circle route. So that's all you're doing, is finding that theta angle between based on the longitude latitude, having put everything back onto this grid. If it's not on that grid, you can't use the haversine. You've got to put everything on that grid on that ball to then use the haversine. It's only of use on a ball.
Yeah. So it's a flat map grid of the flat Earth elevation angle. Then it's converted to a ball to measure angles inside a ball.
I make it simple for you. When I've tried to find where I am on my boat in the Atlantic, on my way to New York, I find all of that flat, right? But what I can do is, using the haversine, is calculate the distance to New York. Whatever use that is to me, because it's a shorthand way of calculating it. Basically, that's its purpose. So you could have pre-computers, a few logarithmic tables, and you've got that information to hand. Otherwise, you know, it's a lot more. There's more days' work to figure it out. So that's its kind of its function at sea, but it's not necessary to navigate at sea.
Yeah, let's just say you measure. Let's make it simple one day. Let's say you measure a distance between your position and New York, right? You're north of the equator. You measure a distance between your position and New York. You find your position with the marine sextant. Then you measure, then you know where you are, and you find your distance between you and New York. To make it simple, all the haversine formula is doing is adding r to that distance, because they're not using east to west. They're using mostly north to south, north to south distances. So they're using longitudinal distances, which won't change over a flat plane. Globe or flat, the longitudinal distances are equal. It's the distances east to west that will be changing, especially north of the equator or south of the equator. So all they're doing is taking a distance that's measured flat and adding r to that distance. That's the basics of all that is doing.
Yeah, that's.
Isn't longitude east to west, or am I getting them different?
Well, yeah, it's read. It's read azimuthally, so it's read from east to west as an azimuth, but it has to be flat to do that. If you understand what I mean, that's a horizontal measurement, an azimuth.
I thought longitude run north to south, and then it was latitude.
But you read them. You read them east to west.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay. Never mind. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. But what about this for a question? Now, I'm not saying that the other question we couldn't go more into, but what about this as a question? Is there any evidence that great circle routes are circles?
Yeah,
that's a good question.
Say that again.
It's a good question.
Well, hold on. Wouldn't they have to be at the North Pole to confirm it?
Now, the only one you can have is the equator, their supposed one.
Right, but you'd have to be at the North Pole to confirm that equator, right? On a sphere. Oh, I'm sorry. On a sphere.
I think the more pertinent. I think the pertinent thing is that we know that they've hijacked perspective, hijacked elevation angles for Earth curves, and a host of other things. So now that we've gotten this upgrade, I think that we need to, at every chance we get, question whether or not something is a misnomer, like a great circle root. Is it a misnomer?
I can't prove it.
Show me
Either
one.
way.
Show me one other great circle route other than the equator that you can verify in completion. Really,
But you want them to say the equator.
it's all they
You want
can.
them.
That's
Yeah,
all.
that's
Yeah, I do. But it's all they can claim because everything else is requiring north-south circumnavigation, which has not been shown. So those ones aren't there. You've only got east-west, right? So the only east-west one you can have is the only one that does constitute a great circle, which is the largest, which is the equator, because they're all same
Right,
size
but
as the equator, these great circle routes.
For them to measure that on a sphere, though, right, would be impossible. But for them to calculate that from a flat plane measurement, they would have to be underneath Polaris with it 90 degrees to them to verify that, right?
You can't see. You've got. I'm assuming to be able to traverse it. You could stay in those. Confirm those longitude, latitudes. Confirm those positions. And said the only one they can do is an equator, and we're happy to go to. But if you think of any other great circle route, when you put that on the ball, is you've got to have a north-south circumnavigation in some form, and that to me has not been demonstrated.
Is a great circle route just the longest possible circle route on a sphere? Is that how that works? Or
Yeah, it's equivalent to a full circumference. There's no short circles. Every single time you start at the North Pole and you go to point A and then all the way around. And it's always a full R-based spherical circumference. That's what the definition of great circle route is. It's not any other circles at different longitudes and latitudes that constitute a smaller size. It always has to be the maximum circle all the way around the fullness of their ball.
could you not do that from any other position though? In theory, like on the quote unquote sphere model, you pick a position that's not necessarily directly east to west, north to south. It could be at 30 degrees from north and go all the way around that way. In theory, no.
Follow it then. That's what I'm saying. That's yet to be demonstrated.
You know what you can't do?
Nobody sails those in the Atlantic, do they? Eh? Nobody.
They don't.
But you know the reason why you can't do it, what you just asked there. You know the reason why you can't do that is because great circle routes are straight line horizontal distances on a flat plane. So if you try and deviate from that to try and change what it would be on a ball, to make your circle route different than something that moves north to south, it's going to all fail. That's why they don't do it. Great circle routes allow people to travel and traverse the world without having to go across the southern Atlantic and any of the southern oceans. Why are they avoiding them on a globe? Because in reality, they're not the size that they want them to be. So that's why they don't do it. They don't do it. That's why what you say is not done. It's not done because they're using a horizontal plane.
I get in on this, guys.
What?
You know what you're working with here. The globe. It's just a working bastard. Right? When you're talking about navigation, it's a bastardized system. It's a bastardized system that works.
Only
Global
for
navigation.
teaching.
I don't follow you. You say it's a bastardized system.
If you look at...
Not really. It just works as it works. But when they describe it working on a sphere and apply haversine to a globus surface after taking flat Earth angles, then it's bastardized. But that isn't actually how it works or is used.
Look at it this way.
Because it's on a flat Earth.
Look at it. Well, look at a map this way. So you have different viewpoints of what a map is. So map represents what the land is supposed to be. And on the globe map, the difference of what you have on a globe map is a south pole. The difference between a globe map and the azimuthal map is that there's no south pole. So when you get past the equator on a globe map, your longitude lines are going to begin to diverge again. Now that's where the big problem comes in, because when you're at the equator, that's the doldrums. That's where supposedly people don't travel beyond. So on a globe, the equator is going to be the middle ring, the greatest circle, because it's the widest. But on an azimuthal map, when you look at the map from above, you have only one pole. All of your longitude lines are, the reason it's an azimuth is because you're measuring it in degrees. Your longitude lines are going to come out like a pizza pie, and they only continually diverge. They don't reconverge at a south pole. So what you have at the equator is the equal. When you're doing a map, all maps need a center point. The pole on the azimuthal map is the center point. So what you try to do on a map is divide it up into sensible grids, so to speak. Whether it's diverging angles from the pole, you're still wanting to divide that up. So the prime meridian is what that does is divide east from west. That's what it's the main divider, the prime meridian. A meridian's a path. So the prime meridian divides the map that way. The equator divides the map, equal distances equate from north to south. The problem is south of the equator on the globe. From north of the equator to the North Pole, it can mimic the azimuthal map as far as navigation, because it's similar. The azimuthal map and the globe map are similar north of the equator, because the pole shows the longitude lines diverging out like a pie, as they do. They don't bow towards each other, but they have to on a globe. And the reason that the stars are so important in navigation is because the Earth on the water is tricky, knowing one landmass from another. When the stars are rotating around that North Pole, that's all they do. They rotate around. The North Pole is the orientation. Without orientation, there's nothing. We see this in language, right? You have to orient to something, and other things are based off of that. Without that orientation, so the North Pole and the North Star is where it all starts. It always has started there. The other stars, the navigational stars, are direct lines towards the land masses, straight down. That's how we know. We use the prime meridian and the equator based off the stars' positions towards the prime meridian. And if they're coming down straight from the heavens, if you're to draw a vertical line from the heavens to the ground, it's easier to navigate with the stars. The problem is navigating today in 2022, you're not going to get that old way. It's been bastardized and it's working. So you can use GPS, but what is that? They tell you it's something, it's a bastardized. What they tell you is the bastardized version of what it actually is. Ground positioning. That means stars are at this ground position at this particular time, every time. It's predictable. It's more predictable than trying to find land masses between one continent to another. We can see how the stars operate. That's why they've always been tried and true, right? There's other old things that have been bastardized, like the horizon. That horizon point anywhere on open water, which is visible, horizon is always apparent. Do we not ever see the line where the sky meets the ground? Is it that fuzzy? It's clearer more than not. So that line on the horizon is always known. If you're on a ship, if you're on a boat, that any point 360 degrees around is known to be level with the water under your feet, under the boat. When they pick that line, they know it to be true consistently, that water line is level. That's the water table. Everything's based on that. And it's when we move away from the original, there's original knowledge, and then that original knowledge is always bastardized. That's an old story. And let me just tell it to you like this, on kind of a spiritual thing. I mean, it's just it's what books are written about. You know, if you woke up one day as the person that you are, and you opened your eyes and you didn't even know who you were, and you looked around and there were no people on this earth, just you, and you just woke up, you didn't know anything. There were no structures, there were no buildings, no to and fro of people, just you and the relationship with this earth. What would you think? I mean, would it be a wonderment? What you're conscious. You don't know your name. You don't know that there's people. There aren't people. There's grass, there's creation, existence, wonderment, splendor. What's taking us away from that? What's that original love? What's separated us from the wonderment of curiosity? What is this place? What are we?
And with that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams. Hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, joining as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!